Welcome back to the next episode of the Life Lid podcast. I'm very lucky today to get the opportunity to sit down with a man that I have known for many, many years, a good friend of mine from my time in the army. He is a father of 3 young girls. He is a veteran of East Timor and Afghanistan. He is an artist. He's got cartoons and animations of his own creation out on YouTube under the guy's Soldiers Under Suspension page on YouTube. Look it up, have a look. His artwork is also hanging up in the Australian War Memorial as part of the Napier Waller Art Prize. All the way from Sydney, please welcome my friend, Stephen Bostock. Stephen, welcome. Welcome. Put your mic a bit closer to your face.
Sorry, mate.
That'll be all right. Welcome, mate. Appreciate you coming all the way up here from Sydney.
Thank you, mate.
It's good.
Thanks
How was your flight?
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah,
pretty quick.
Not stuck next to any fatties, which was good.
No, it wasn't. No,
No screaming babies.
no screaming babies. Just a lot of coughing and spluttering and boogers on my seat and that sort of shit. So
it's gross.
I dropped a couple of bombs. My wife gave me some P&M soup before I left, so I was just stinking up the whole plane on the way in here. So, full denied it too. Everyone was sort of like looking around, and I was just like, "Who the fuck was that? Fuck, grubby cunts."
Oh, that's fucking
Guilty.
great. That's great. So obviously we've known each other for quite a long time. I remember the first time I met you, you yelled at me, which was great. We went over that on your podcast.
Yeah, it was valid.
I mean, I was just trying to be nice, trying to help out. But,
Imagine being a lid and telling a secco what he's done wrong. You just asked for
Hey,
it,
look,
mate.
I just tried to let you know that the jerry can came off. It looked important. I'm just, my bad. You used to run by Blory back then. But
Yep, correct.
You've changed the name to Bostock.
Yes,
or
correct.
Is it Bostock or Bostock?
Yep, took my wife's
Bostock.
name. Yeah.
Really?
Yep, correct.
Very progressive of you.
It is very progressive, and it fools a lot of people that live on the left. They think I'm part of their culture and part of their thread, mate.
Yeah.
But in fact, I just did it because it made the most sense for my family.
Yeah, right.
Truth is, I've had my name changed over 5 times.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so essentially what happened is my father was a convicted felon, and he was essentially imprisoned down in Penrith at a low-security prison. And he decided one day that he would escape and go and have a few beers at the Donahue pub down the road. And his intention was to return full bloated, full of piss and go back to his cell. But, the Irish whiskey got the better of him, and he decided that he'd just maybe not go back. And in that process, he met my mother while he was essentially on the run.
Yeah.
So he's a pretty bad dude, but we can go into more detail. But essentially, I went into witness protection when I was about 2 years of age, and had to change my name, obviously, to protect me from him mostly. And then throughout my early childhood, my mother remarried and had her name changed. And so my name was changed progressively throughout the years until finally, as you knew me as Blore.
Yeah.
And then because you know how hard it is to get security clearances and passports. And when you've had 5 name changes and one of them was through witness protection, so there's no record of it whatsoever, it made that whole that process so frustrating. And so one of the things when I had my firstborn child was that my wife and I weren't married, and so we had to pick a name. And by default, my wife just put her name down, and my firstborn got my wife's name. And to save them all changing their names when we were to get married, I just went, it'd just be easier for me to change my name again. I've already had it changed, several times. So it just makes the most sense.
Yeah, witness protection.
Yeah.
What was that like? That's
So I'll take you back. My father's family's from Cyprus.
Okay.
So it's a small Greek island in the middle of between Syria and Turkey and stuff. And my grandfather, him and his brothers went to London and started an underground casino. They were part of a Greek mafia there. They were pretty bad dudes. And then the Russian mafia kicked him out, and my grandfather fled to Australia, where he met my grandmother Nancy. And during the time here, he did a couple of armoured vehicle robberies, a couple of armoured vehicle guys apparently died. Apparently my grandfather was responsible for those, and he fled and abandoned my father and his brother here in Australia with their grandmother, and unfortunately left them with no money. And so my grandmother worked as a live-in maid. And if you read between the lines, she did what she had to obviously put food on the table and keep a roof over their head for my father and his brother. And so my dad grew up pretty rough, and he grew up in mostly Canberra and became quite a notorious criminal down there. He was well known among authorities. And and eventually when he met my mother, he'd had quite a career history as a felon. And my mother went through her own tribulations growing up. She was given up for adoption early on and was taken into a significantly Christian family household with many other siblings and things like that. And she had her own struggles growing up. And so these two sort of broken souls, I guess, formed a relationship. And unto us, to anyone, they didn't really want that. They felt like having me was a mistake. So there was a lot of pressure there to get rid of me and things like that. And my mother kept on going, but obviously had me. So my first memory as a child is actually of my father losing his shit. And I was about 2 years old, and grabbed me by the throat and threw me on the bed. And my mother and my father had quite a serious argument. And it's one of my core memories, my first core memory. It was extremely violent. My mother's account of it is kind of shadowy in my head. She's told me it a few times. I'm not entirely clear of all the details. Apparently there was a pistol involved. There were shots fired. Definitely my mum's and my life were in jeopardy. And I remember my mother grabbing me and locking the bathroom door, climbing through the window. And I have the most clearest memory of her climbing through that window and running down the street. And I'm like looking back towards the house as my father's trying to kick it in and potentially murder us. So after that, my mother went and told the police all the crimes that he'd been doing. He'd been quite involved in the drug industry and things like that as well. So my early days were pretty horrible. Yeah. So my mother went into witness protection, and me as default, we changed our name, and we sort of went into hiding. And the next couple of years of my life were quite difficult because my mother was terrified that associates of his or he would escape again and find us. And so I wasn't ever allowed to, play with other kids in the front yard. I always had to hide in the backyard. So I was very, very lonely for the early parts of my childhood.
Jeez.
So
fucking hell, mate.
Yeah.
That's heavy. Thought we'd start with a laugh, but here we are.
Well, we could start with a laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, this studio looks like a brothel and not one of the good ones like you see in Malaysia where all the walls are wet.
Fuck me.
You didn't even ask me about my pronouns either when we sat down.
Oh, I don't ask that. I don't ask that. I think most people coming on just
they're Homo and sapien, by the way.
Dude, that's an incredible start to life, really.
Yeah.
Like that's got to. Do you think that's instilled in you sort of the determination and things that's led you to be sort of who you are today? Like, would you, if you could change that, would you change that?
Oh, I think having a strong relation, like a mother and a father that are in a nuclear sort of environment where they're both happily together is crucial for the early developments of a child. Like, I think it's the biggest thing that society is missing right now are the bond and the strength of the family structure. And I think not having that in the early part of a child's life is detrimental to their upbringing and how they turn out as a child. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you want to do when you grew up as a kid?
I wanted to be an actor, wanted to play cricket for Australia, and I wanted to be in the army.
I wanted to be a serial killer or like a granny strangler or something like that. Like I always saw myself as the bad guy.
Yeah.
And, it was funny when I went to Timor, the best thing about East Timor when I deployed over there was that you could get any books and just like anything through the US postal system. Yeah. There was no restrictions like we have in Australia. Yeah. So I was getting books about silencers, pick locking, hitman books. That was like a step-by-step instructor. I was deep into it, man. And like that was when I really grew my love of reading, was actually in Timor, reading all these weird books, and you could get anything.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's handy having that US postal address. I thought you were joking. You really went down that rabbit hole. You wanted to.
Yeah. But I mean, I
Was
didn't like the idea of like strangling granny, so I did the next best thing and joined the army.
Yeah. Fair. Fuck me, bro. You started us off great with that.
Oh, mate, what can I say?
Yeah, but how do you feel knowing that, looking back at a childhood like that? Like, obviously you're a father now with a couple of young daughters.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
I'm deeply aware of humanity and how people are human. I don't believe people are evil or purposely spiteful, or I just believe we're all human. We make mistakes. And my mother did her very best. She loved me. She did her very best, but she's not without her faults. I mean, it's probably not a great idea to fall in love and start a relationship with a felon who's technically on the run. He's a fugitive. Probably not a good idea.
Did she know that at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's probably not a good idea to also have a child with him. Lots of things. And then the behaviors that he did, I mean, like, I'm not going to say some of the stuff he did, but, he did the top tier bad stuff. And my mother was a witness to some of that. And so, there's some decisions there that you go, why would you pursue that? But we're all victims of our situations. We're all victims of our own childhood traumas, and I don't hold any blame. I just fundamentally understand the processes that led people to those situations, and understanding that actually helps with healing and moving forward in life. So I just remember that, and that sort of gets me over the top of things. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So have you had any contact with him since then? Or?
So, no. And he actually passed away the year I deployed to Afghanistan. He took his own life in 2011. Correction, 2010, March 2010. And he also passed away the same time as my grandmother, who I'd never met since I was 2, and my grandfather and my step-grandfather. So basically that whole family tree on my father's side has passed away, except for his brother, my uncle. Yeah. And I met him basically for the first time in 2020, I want to say. Yeah. And I sat down with him. I actually found him when I was a private investigator. I used all my investigative know-how to actually track him down, and I just never made the call. So I already knew who he was. And then actually what I did was I went against all my conspiracy theory, precedences, and went, I'll do one of those DNA tests. And me and him actually linked. And through that, we actually ended up meeting each other. So.
Yeah, right. How was that? Was he different, like completely different to what you thought? Was he kind of in line what you kind of expected?
Oh, look. He's a character. I'll give him that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's a character.
What did he have to say about it?
He's really good, actually. He was actually really good to meet. He was super inviting, very inviting, very welcoming, and told me lots of stuff about my father I didn't know. Told me lots of history, filled in so many gaps. I mean, from a young age, I've always asked, who the hell am I? I have never had my biological father in my life, so I've always wondered, who am I? And I think most children or most sons look up to their father and be like, okay, this is who I am. So for me, it filled a lot of sort of holes and gaps in my story, which was really helpful as well.
Yeah. So how did you kind of deal with that when you found out who he was and what he'd done?
Well, my mother always was pretty honest with me growing up. Okay. She always beat around the subject somewhat. So my mother remarried my stepfather, who I essentially called my father. He raised me, but before that, the first 6 years of my life, my mother was young. She was 21 when she had me. There was a lot of men coming in and out of my life at the time, and very strange men. I was always sort of kicked out of the room when these men came a-calling. And so my first 6 years of my life were really tough. And I was actually really blessed that my mother's adopted parents were around and were able to look after me some days while my mother went to work, because that gave me my only view of life of normality, if that makes sense. Here were two people, and they put rules and discipline. This is my nap time. I don't care if you cry, Stephen. You're going to bed. This is what you're doing. So they gave me structure. They gave me normality. And without them, I think I probably would have been a lot more lost as an adult. So they definitely helped. But yeah, I remember being like 4 years old, and this dude used to come around in a prime mover and go and visit my mum, and I'd get kicked out of the house and go and have to hang out with this kid who used to eat fish eyeballs with his dad after he went fishing. Weird kid, man. And I remember I used to hate it because this dude used to come over all the time. I used to have to fucking go play outside.
Yeah.
And I remember one day I was like, fuck this cunt. And my mom's like, all right, fucking out you get. Old mate's coming over. And I grabbed a steak knife from the kitchen drawer.
Yeah.
And 4 years old, I went out to his prime mover and the hydraulic hoses that come out the back.
Yeah.
I tried cutting them. I thought it would blow up the car or something.
Yeah.
Fucking stupid. But I didn't even have enough muscle in my arms to get through the hydraulic hose. But that's the sort of kid I was as a 4-year-old, was thinking about, that sort of stuff. So I was not well. And then my stepfather came along, and he was ex-military. And boy, was that a awakening. Like that was a team's change. Like it was just like, this is how it is. And he was hard. He was mean. I didn't feel a lot of love from him ever. And it was a pretty toxic environment for me and him. But he was literally the best thing for me. Like if it wasn't for him coming into my life, I would have ended up in prison 100%. I would have been just like my father. He put discipline and structure into my life, gave me self-respect. His methods were, out of the box and, questionable, but I was a pretty unruly kid. Yeah. And he definitely, like, I've never thanked him for it, and I probably should, but if it wasn't for him coming into my life and doing what he did, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you today. It'd be a very different story.
Yeah, right. Is he sort of one of the reasons you ended up joining the army?
Yeah, it was a little bit. Yeah, it was. He didn't think I could do infantry. When I went to sign up, he's like, "Oh, mate, you're going to fail that. You're a little fag boy." Basically, I don't think he really said those words, but he implied it. He's like, "You're a little bitch, cunt. You're not going to fucking make infantry." Yeah. And then I sort of went in the recruiter's office, and they're like, "What do you want?" And I changed. I originally had air dispatch or something on there. And he's like, "All right, so this is your final ones." I'm like, "No, infantry." Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, really?
God's cool."
Yeah. Infantry, change it to infantry. I'm gonna prove this count fucking wrong.
Yeah.
So
yeah, right. What year is that?
2006 I joined.
2006, jeez. So it would have been 5'7" still back then.
It had just changed. Yeah. Okay. So, it would have been 5'7" when I enlisted, but by the time I got to the battalion, they had delinked. Yeah, but it was the 5'7" was still sort of technically together. Yeah. They were still managing the administration between who's going where and that sort of thing. So it was very early days.
Yeah, yeah. How long was it before you ended up in Timor?
I went to Timor in 2008, yeah.
Oh, so it's a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like?
Timor?
Yeah.
It was a great first deployment. It was a great sort of rehearsal for what's expected of an infantry soldier into day-to-day sort of barracks life and things like that. I deployed over there as a CFA and as a part of QRF. Yeah. So I got to see a lot of the motor vehicle accidents, get exposed to that. It's the first time I had a dude die on my arms. He'd been hit by at the time there was a lot of UN personnel running around the country, and they were getting blamed for a lot of arrogant deaths on the roads. They were just driving around like assholes basically, and they were killing a lot of the Timorese locals. And this was another example of that. And this UN lady had hit this dude on a scooter, and pretty much fucked him up pretty bad. And I come on the scene and tried to keep him alive based on what I could do, but he ended up coughing his last breath up on my face, and his skull had actually been crushed and collapsed, and parts of it were coming out the back of his head. So for me, that was my sort of first exposure to death, and part of that experience was seeing how different cultures deal with traumatic scenes, or, for instance, motor vehicle accidents and things like that. Here in Australia, we're sort of used to seeing the ambulance turn up. There's a lot of respect. There's obviously care for the body and for the patient, even if it is deceased. And these dudes, man, these Timorese ambulances just turned up and they just picked him up out of my lap like a potato sack.
Yeah.
And they were like 1, 2, 3, and just swung him into the back of the ambulance,
Really?
which was like essentially like a beat up panel van. And they missed. He hit the back bumper, collapsed to the ground, and like his skull crushed even more.
Yeah.
Like it was just like falling to pieces at this stage. Well, fuck, we messed that up. Try again, and then eventually managed to get him into the back of the car.
Jeez.
But Timor was great for that reason. Was good exposure, but there was very little threat. So it was just refining your combat skills and things like that. But I also did reconnaissance basic course and also did my sub 2 for corporal over there in Timor. And if anyone says they weren't the hardest courses in the military, I'll fucking fight you. But they were pretty hard on themselves, and there's some stories to go with that as well. But,
well, feel free to elaborate.
Well, I want to go back to marching in the battalion actually, because I actually marched in the battalion with 17 days restrictions of privileges.
That's not the best way to start.
No, it's not the best way to march into a battalion. So I got into 5RR and I turned up, and they're like, "Who the fuck is this cunt with 17 days outstanding restrictions of privileges?" And I'd already done 6 back at Singo, and they were like, "Who the fuck is this cunt? Like, he must be the biggest bag of shit." So, and all the boys were like sort of come back from Iraq. Yeah. And they're all gonged up, and then he's this gobby fucking lid in the guard room, marching around with like a pack on with like they made me put the hoochie around me, so I like sweated extra hard. There was no like lead up training for me, bro. It was just straight into it. Yeah. And those first 17 days in the battalion were long, bro. It felt like I'd already been there a year. Yeah.
That'd suck. What did you get roppers for?
Oh, there was a shit fight in Singo. He got thrown into extra, that rehab platoon or whatever. And he's just a piece of shit from our platoon. And Maseko goes, "See that piece of shit over there, Blory? I want you to flog him." I was like, "Yes, Corporal." And I went over there and I flogged him. And then he ran back to the guard room and dobbed on me. And then the guard commander came up and was like, you. And there's that corporal running out the back through the bushes. And he was the cunt that charged me. He's like, this. I'm like, this is fucking bullshit. Yeah, you and told me to. He's like, just go with it, cunt. Just go with it. And then another time, I mean, it sounds cool to say that I assaulted an undercover police officer, but in truth, I had actually nothing to do with it. I was just there. I was drunk on the train on my way back to Sydney, and you might remember Dave Blinds, God rest his soul, was drunk on the train with another fella from 7R. We went to 7R. Who was also in my section in Singo and Kapuka. And they were just causing a muck, bro. They were just being pieces of shit. And they got pulled up by some undercovers, and they were roughing him up in the train. And I was asleep, woke up, and just through the little window on the Sydney train, I just see Blindsy getting roughed up by this dude in plain clothes. So I've come running in, sort of half cocked. I didn't hit him, but and he's like, "All right, you over there too, mate. You're in trouble as well." And I was like, "Oh fuck." So it was a nothing thing, but they ended up giving me 10 days for it.
Yeah. What?
Bringing the defence into disrepute or whatever it's called.
Yeah, pred conduct.
Yeah, it was
prejudicial conduct.
It was a gay charge. And originally they wanted to put me in handcuffs. They wanted me to march out in Singo, and then they were going to get the MPs to put me in handcuffs and take me down to Holsworthy. That was what they were going to send me down to Holsworthy for it. And they were like, "That's going to look pretty bad in front of his parents if like, he marches out and then we just put him in handcuffs." I was like, that would have been fucking badass. That would have been sick. Oh. But they just ended up, they go, "It'll be worse if we send in the battalion with 17 days rompers." So I did them consecutively too. You only meant to do like 14 in a row, but ended up doing all 17.
That'd suck. Did you get anyone give you a break while you were there or no? Nah, everyone just fed you.
I had Billy Ballbag and those sort of dudes there, man. So it's just like...
God, man,
just
that's
emu bobbing the entire brigade with like a fucking 40 kilo pack on your back.
Yeah, sweeping rain off the parade ground like an absolute legend. Yeah, I remember Lofty giving roppers to someone. He took him to the parade ground. He made him do 100 push-ups or 10 push-ups for every pigeon that landed on the parade ground. And he had to go and sweep them off with a broom. Yeah, and by like after an hour and a half, I think Pom was telling me he was sitting behind him and he's just like, "You've got to let him go, man. He's up to like 10,000 push-ups." As you get in a flock of 100 just land, and it's like, what do you do? Oh, dude, that's fuck me. 17 days. Yeah. That is horrendous. Yeah. That is absolutely horrendous.
So I had a lot of making up to do. So for the next sort of slot of my career, you know, I had a lot of eyes on me. Obviously, I had a reputation of being a piece of shit, so I had to correct that, which I did quite easily. I turned things around very quickly.
Yeah, yeah. You didn't get too much trouble on the piss?
No, I was all right. I actually got away with just about everything I did because I just denied and counter accused.
Yes.
But I learned the one thing my father did leave my mother to tell me is if you ever do any crime, do it by yourself.
Yeah.
So all the naughty stuff I did either by myself or if I didn't, I covered my tracks.
Yeah.
And I fucking pinned it on other people.
I wasn't there. Had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I was a kid, I learned never to just fucking make all the evidence point directly at you because you remember those Connect pens?
Yeah. Yep.
So my mum bought me these Connect pens. Typical fucking grunt in the making. I would make little guns out of them. And when I was meant to be doing my working class, I was like, pew, pew, pew.
Yeah.
And this used to be this kid in my class. And unfortunately, his legs didn't grow properly. And so he was like in all these like pins and vices in his legs. And he couldn't walk. And he was pretty much wheelchair bound his entire childhood. Anyway, he put his hand up and dobbed on me. And I got sent to the naughty corner back at school. We had, full snitch. And the naughty corner just happened to be where his wheelchair used to sit during class time. So as punishment, it's like, if I'm not going to fucking lunch, cunt, neither are you. So I pulled out all the pins out of the pin board and popped his fucking tyres, put about fucking 30 holes in his tyres, and he couldn't go to lunch either. Anyway, next day, I've got his parents, the teacher, just looking at me going, so do you want to tell us what you did? I'm like, I don't know what you're on about. Clearly it was me. So ever since then, I was like, all right, I got to be smarter about how I do things.
That is, I can't believe you picked on the kid in the wheelchair.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a snitch, but
I told you I was a piece of shit. That's why I had to dress up so nicely today.
Oh, we are. This is by far the best dressed episode we've had so far, and probably the best it will ever get.
Yeah, when you're a walking turd, you need to put
roll yourself in glitter.
Yeah, you need to roll yourself in glitter. Exactly.
Fucking hell. So how much? When did you end up going to Iraq? So you did Iraq as well?
No, I never did Iraq.
Didn't do Iraq.
No, I'm just missed out on it.
Yeah.
I may have been able to get a rocket roll in Iraq had I not marched him with 17 days rompers. Yeah, right. Because they were looking for dudes to go over for rockall, but they were like, bro.
Yeah, no, you fucked up.
Yeah. Not going, man.
Yeah, fair. So Team Mum must have been pretty good then, doing all your courses and stuff like that. What were the courses like over there?
They were hard, man. Easy. They were really, really hard. Recon course was exceptionally hard, but also the first sub 2 run over there was brutal, bro. Absolutely brutal. Just about all of us ended up coming out of there with significant prickly heat, trench foot. I've never been more miserable in my life doing that course. It was hard yakka. Like it was proper hard. Like the pits were constantly full of water up to your neck, and it's just this red mud soupy tea. And shots fired, you get to your pits, and you're just wet and just hot and
that sucks.
Shitty all the time, man. Just rashes all over you. Fucking sleep deprivation, food deprivation. Yeah, it was a nightmare, bro. It really was.
That sounds horrendous.
And the weeks leading up to that, we had to do our theory component of it, and it was at the Gleno soccer stadium, which was on these hard concrete grounds. And I think like 3 dudes ended up getting hemorrhoids because we're just sitting on that concrete for so long. Like dudes were like, "Oh man, I need to go see the doc." Like my asshole's fucked.
Yeah,
like something's going on with it. Because we're just sitting on, like everyone was just having a bad day, man. Like, it was just really shitty. And then we did recon. That was good, but it was really, really tough. As you know, like they don't go easy on you on that course. And we had people like Stoney and that basically running it, man. And, mate, he don't miss.
Oh, Stoney, the human Dorito.
Yeah, mate, he don't miss, bro. The human Dorito, just giant fucking triangle, bro. Yeah. Try doing fucking 1,000 push-ups with that cunt in a budgie smuggler and a cowboy hat, and try and take this fucking course seriously. But man, it was pretty good. Like it was right up my alley. I had a good dude do it with me. I won't say his name because of what he works with currently down in Canberra, but essentially, he helped me get through it. Basically, his motto was, we just act like this doesn't even hurt us, and it breaks all the other dudes around us because they're like, they'll be hurting. And if they see us and we don't even look like they're hurting, it'll just break them. And basically the name of the game, especially for those first couple of weeks, they just want to cull dudes. They just want to break dudes and just see who's left, and then they'll do the real course. And so every time dudes were hurting, this fella would just act like, nothing's hurting us. And dudes would just like look over at us and like, fuck, these guys aren't even looking like they're hurting. They're like, oh, I'm not going to make it. And they'll just throw their hat in. So that boosts our confidence. Every time some dude threw his hat in, was like, I can't do this. Like it gave us more motivation to keep going. So
yeah, Lofty had a good theory about that. Everyone has a morale pie tin.
Yeah.
And he comes to work with an empty morale pie tin, and he just slowly over the course of the day takes slices of other people's morale pie. And at the end of the day, Lofty has a big old meal of morale pie.
Yeah. Same, but different.
Yeah. He's a crack up, that man. He's another one that was very, very angry.
Yes.
And then he went and did chalk time, I believe, over in Perth. There's a training command time, and came back, just changed.
Yeah.
Completely, much more relaxed. Look, me and him became good mates towards the end of my time at 5. just a different human being.
Yep.
So much more leveled out and relaxed. I wonder if it was the tempo, because I know 5, even before I rocked up, was very, very operational, very high tempo, constantly on the move. I wonder if that sort of pushed a lot of the guys to be at that higher level of like anxiety or stress or whatever you want to call it, to be that angry all the time.
Yeah, for me, I think obviously I was quite an angry dude in the battalion. People know me for fucking losing my lid. So
renowned.
Yeah, renowned for fucking for just fucking throwing down. But the thing is that when I first joined too, like, when you get into Kapuka, they're like, you're a piece of shit. Whatever you do, you'll never amount to anything. You're an absolute piece of garbage. Like, you're just a piece of shit. Don't even bother. And so that plays on you. And they do. Like, one of the great things that the military does is all of us build this insulation around us like we're a tree, and we build this essentially a lie about how good we are around us. And the good thing about the army is they just chip away at that. They just remove all that shit until you're like this little twig, and that's who you really are. All the bullshit that you've made up about yourself's gone, and then they build you up, and you actually become quite a solid tree. There's no insulation. That's who you are. And during that process, when we did the bayonet assault course, I'd just been getting fucking hounded, bro. Like, you are a garbage human. Like, you're not going to make it. And then when we did the bayonet assault course, it was my final time to show some aggression and get it out. And I was never a fighter growing up. I was never a scrapper. I didn't start fights. I didn't want to punch on with nobody. It just wasn't who I was. And I was just fucking at my wit's end. And when it came to this bayonet assault course, I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to give it everything I went. So all that childhood trauma probably came out in that bayonet assault course, and I just went hell for leather. And they were like, fuck, we like that.
Yeah.
Do more of that. So that sort of set me off on a path. It was like, well, this is what they like. They like crazy, fucking aggressive, angry cunt.
Yeah.
So that's sort of who I'll be. And that's who I was for nearly 6 years of my career. And the tail end, when I went back to recon and became patrol commander, I was like, all right, I can put that hat away now and just be sort of more who I want to be, instead of the dude that flips off the handle, because that's what I thought people wanted me to be.
Yeah, interesting. I just thought you were just an angry dude, but the army did that to you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's what I tell DVA anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So you're coming forward, you ended up going to Afghan. Where did you end up over there?
I ended up in the Chora Valley, which is just north of the Baluchi Valley.
Yeah.
In the patrol base Mirrorwise.
Yeah, because you were with
Force Protection.
Delta Company, yeah?
Delta Company, Force Protection, yep. So essentially our role in Afghanistan was obviously to reduce the enemy's capacity to hinder and influence the omelette patrols that were basically being mentored to build up their capacity and their functionality in Afghanistan. So we would go out and either weaken the enemy through contacts and strength, but more so it was to reduce their ability to resupply through caches, and obviously deny them their ability to use IEDs and find those IEDs before the ANA stepped on them and that sort of thing. So we were very busy in the AO, and I think we spent the first 3 to 4 months of that deployment in our vehicles, just constantly moving around the Chora Valley and assisting other patrol bases with operations.
Dude, that would have been full on. How was it for you landing on the ground over there?
Mate, it was the dream come true. It's what every soldier wants to do. It was game day, and I fulfilled my role. I did everything I needed to do in Afghanistan. Like I said, I wanted to be a serial killer as a child, so obviously I wanted to get a few kills under my belt, but that never eventuated. And it was interesting, very early on in the deployment, one of the first operations I did sort of set the stage for the rest of my deployment, which is probably the reason why none of that actually eventuated, was there were, we set up in a vehicle hide, all around defense, and we were working out of an area in the Aputure Valley. It was one of our first operations. And we went around, we did a series of patrols, and we went around to all the compound and koala structures in the foreseeable area. And we told them, hey, listen, guys, we're going to be here for a couple of days with the interpreter. It would be very highly advised at night time, maybe not to come out and dig near the roads or put any YPOC containers. For those playing at home who don't know, they're 20-litre containers that usually hold palm oil that they fill with explosives, usually from fertilizer, aluminium or silver oil, and diesel. And I was like, just don't do none of that. Just for 2 nights, just stay home, stay in your fires, sleep with your chai boys, do whatever. Just don't come out and dig near the roads. And might have been the first or second night, these dudes, I think it was the first night, these 3 dudes come out and they were about 200 metres away and they were digging right on the side of the road. And they're putting these YPOC containers in the road straight away. You know, ROE, engage, fucking neutralise these dudes. And I was running, pushing dudes out of the way to get to the gun. I'm like, I fucking got these cunts, get out of my way. And the boss was like, hold up, Laurie, don't shoot. I'm like, don't be a fucking pussy cunt. Like, I'm fucking ending these cunts. This is what I want. Like, I'm going to fucking do it. He's like, no, relax. Let's just find out a bit more information. And I was like, fuck, all right, mate, no worries. Fucking do your thing. And I'm like sitting there waiting for him to go, yep, you can go. And I was just going to fucking blast these cunts. And the boss goes, look, let's just send a brick down there. And if these dudes are bad dudes, then we'll do what we need to do. But let's just confirm. And thank God, like, we need level-headed dudes like that. I didn't like the guy, but he did well, especially in this situation. And they got down there and they were burying water so that it was cold the next morning when they woke up. It fucking retarded.
Yeah.
Really, really retarded.
Yeah, it's dumb.
And that set the precedent. I was like, fuck, I would have wasted those dudes. And now I would have had to live with the fact that I just killed these 3 dudes and they were just burying water for tomorrow when they're in the paddocks harvesting their poppy fields. They had cold drinking water. So that sort of set the stage for me for the rest of the deployment. I was like, okay, even though this falls into the ROE, should I be engaging everything that falls into ROE, or should I be looking at things from the perspective that I could be potentially wrong and taking a human life for the sake of taking human life? And so every step forward from that, when I was presented with a target, when I probably would have fired had that situation not happened, I didn't fire. And I'm thankful for that. I don't have any regrets because the dudes that I could have fired at, they didn't shoot again anyway. And, you know, I went home with a clear conscience.
Yeah, that would have been hard to explain.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Not just up the chain, but to yourself, for
yeah.
sure.
Well, I would have had to live with that fact. When we turned up and there was just water in those YPOC containers, it would have been like, well, fuck. That was a mistake, wasn't it?
Yeah. That would have been a messy situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But fell well and truly within my rules of engagement.
Yeah. I remember there was the, I think it was 2 Commando at the time, either just before we deployed or while we were overseas. There was that big investigation going on at the time. They from memory, they'd been in contact from a compound, went in, breached the door with a grenade, like they'd been shot at from this building, and there was, you know,
women and children.
Women
I
and
remember
children
that.
in there. Yeah, and those guys were getting dragged through the mud, like, you know, collateral damage. And they'd done nothing wrong. Like, their SOPs, that's exactly what they're taught to do. That's the TTP, the tactics, was it something, tactics and procedures. Like, everything they'd done was right, and it was just a really unfortunate circumstance. But I know that for me personally, that played on my mind a lot.
Yep.
Where any time there was a situation, I was like, am I going to get fucking dragged in for war crimes if I slot this dude, or what's going to happen?
And there was no top cover whatsoever.
No,
And when,
they
even if
abandoned.
there was explainable circumstances and people could, work through the process of the mechanisms where it led to that and agree on things, no one was willing to cover you.
No.
No one, not, and I don't mean like cover you. I mean as in help explain how the situation unfolded. They're just like, that's you now, mate.
Yeah,
you're on your own. Which was a scary thing. So a lot of diggers were very apprehensive of actually pulling the trigger, which can be a good and a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's good on the one hand. You don't slot those poor dudes trying to just bury water.
Exactly.
But at the same time, the situation where you should be pulling the trigger, maybe you hesitate and it ends with you copping around or someone else copping around.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that I've explained to people that aren't ex-military. The officer stream seems to be less about looking after the people below them and more about their own self-interest and their own career trajectories, as 100%. It were. Not all of them, obviously, but the vast majority, from my experience, for sure.
Yeah,
which is not ideal. I think it's one of those things that, like, as a leader, you're supposed to be the person that takes the hit. You're supposed to be the buffer between what shit is coming downhill and what needs to be going uphill. That passive information, that protection of the people under you. And I think we just don't have that anymore.
Accountability.
Yeah.
100% accountability. And it's something I didn't learn as a digger when I was doing my sub 2 in East Timor was accountability. There was a situation that happened during training where there was an ambush and the boys just went off and did their own thing. And I got fucking hammered for it. And I was like, fuck, I didn't give any of those orders. And I was argumentative because I was like, fuck, it's got nothing to do with me. I didn't do any of this shit. And they're like, nah, fuck it all on you. And I had one officer hedger. He was just feeding me, bro. You know, and he knows how to feed you.
Yeah.
And so I had to cop it from him and I was argumentative and, you know, he's like, oh, I got no accountability. And then it wasn't until I actually started getting ranked that I understood that even though I don't think I've done the wrong thing, I need to be accountable for my men. Even if they're fucked up, it's on me. I need to take accountability. Even though I didn't give those orders, I should have done something further down the road or before that would have prevented that from occurring. So therefore, I'll take onus on that. And that was something that I always made sure that I tried to implement into my own leadership style was accountability. Yep, I fucked up that. That's on me. That's not on them. I should have fucking done something about that. Whereas I find that when you start going to people, looking at the people that go to ADFA, go through officer training, I don't see any of that come out of the academy. I see very much the blame and the onus being pushed everywhere else. Certainly as you start getting into in my experience in Delta Company anyway, man, like leadership there was atrocious overseas.
Yeah, that's renowned. Everyone on that deployment knows how leadership failed on them. They failed everyone under them, and that's horrendous, really. You know, young men's lives are at stake, and you're making decisions like they did. Not good at all.
No,
not good at all. Would you like to elaborate on that?
No, not at all. No,
fair enough.
I don't want to give those cunts any fucking.
Yeah, that's fair. But we were speaking earlier actually about accountability and how it's something that is lacking everywhere, especially in today's society. Everyone wants to throw shade and throw blame left, right, and centre, but nobody wants to look at themselves and take, even if they're not wholly responsible for something, at least take their portion of the blame on what we got there.
And focus on your portion. Focus on the part that you can fix. Instead of focusing on what everybody else should be doing or this person should be doing, what is it that you're doing that could be better? And just because it's really more on them that you feel doesn't mean that that's what you should focus on. In fact, if the more you look internally, the more you'll find out, shit, this is just my problem actually.
Yeah.
This is 100% my problem and I just need to fucking sort it out.
Yeah. It's kind of looking at and not there's definitely extenuating circumstances for some people in terms of being overweight. There are people who have medical issues, and that's completely fine. We're not speaking about those people.
Calorie dense people, yeah.
Yes, calorie dense people. But
I'm fat phobic. So thank you for bringing that into the conversation.
My point was
we know you obviously don't like Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people because you didn't do a welcome to country when we walked in here.
Whoa, let's not put that out there.
Mate, that's the assertion I have to make. There was no welcome to country. Come on.
I'm not going to welcome you to our own country. We live here. We were born here. We fought for this. I'm not welcoming you to it. But yeah, you know, there are those people that look and they go, it's McDonald's' fault that I'm fat. Well, it's not. We all know that McDonald's isn't healthy food. And no one's saying that you can't eat it, but maybe don't eat it every meal and then wonder when you do that and you don't do any exercise why you've gained 300 kilos.
Yeah.
That you need to take that level of personal responsibility.
100%.
I think it's lacking everywhere. I've said it a million times before and I'll say it again. You come to police interactions. No accountability on the actual individual at fault here. It's all placed on the policeman to,
Yes.
it's their problem. It's not, is it? If the person they're interacting with actually does phone going off.
Sorry, bud.
That's all right. If you take accountability for your own actions, everything is fine. If you don't act like a cock, you don't get treated like a cock for the most part. Yeah, there's obviously going to be bad apples and there's going to be cops that are going to be cunts about things. That's in every industry. We've got assholes. It doesn't matter what you go into.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're very right. Accountability is lacking across the entire of society.
Well, I got a story about accountability.
Tell me the story about accountability.
Halfway through the recon course in East Timor, we had Anzac Day.
Yeah.
And fuck, mate, this is the most hectic Anzac Day I've ever seen in my entire life. All the boys went back to Bacau for the Anzac Day celebrations. All exercises stopped, sub 2 that was run at the time, and recon, snipers course, whatever was running, everything stopped. And everyone went back to Bacau. That was in that training area in East Timor. Anyway, I stayed behind and put my hand up to guard the weapons and the ammunition, and then I'd get relieved later that day. Anyway, this white vehicle turned up, no radio in it, no water, no ammunition, no spare tyre, no nothing. And me and one of the other fellas were driving it back to Bacau, and we might have decided to take it off-road a little bit and play some heavy metal while we did so. And we ended up getting a flat, and we had no spare to change it. Dude, massive epic story. I'm not going to bore you with it, but it was a fucking mission to get back to Bacau. And we ended up like riding in this tuk-tuk with our guns, like amongst all these fucking locals, man, trying to like scurry our way back to Bacau to try and pick up a spare tire and then bring it back. Anyway, I get there and it was like a scene out of Jarhead, bro. At the end, we know where like they're just firing fucking weapons in the air. They've got the shirts off. They're all drunk. Dude, there was not a sober person on the base. Like the fucking Indonesian army could have just wandered right in, bro. It was crazy. Remember those gladiator chicks that you see on like Channel 9 or whatever?
Yeah.
They were visiting, okay, and they were at the back. I'm pretty sure they were firing blanks. I've got no idea, but they were just full rapid fire into the jungle with like a couple of recon boys. They were found in compromising positions in one of the toilet blocks, which I can't go into because I wasn't technically in the toilet block, so I don't know whether it's true or not. But let's just say a female CSM seemed to be quite disturbed about what she was seeing going on. But it was mayhem, bro. It was fucking mayhem. And the dude that was helping me find a tire had throw up all down his fucking belly, and he was just wearing underpants. And he's like, mate, I don't know, fucking some of those tires might fit. I don't know. So I'm grabbing all these tires and I'm putting them in a different vehicle to drive back to the other one. Anyway, cut a long story short, I just ended up driving the other car on a flat because none of the tires fitted, and rubber was flying. Like the whole rim was on fire. I turned into the base, bro. The car was on, like the whole side of the car turned on fire. I walked away from it like James Bond, bro. I was like, I was so cranky. I was like, I'm fucking done. They're like, are you going to put that out? And I'm like, nah, cunts are like with a fire extinguisher behind me blowing out. I'm like, I'm getting a beer, cunt. So I went and got a beer, and funny story, that was the day a whole bunch of 30 UN vehicles, like maybe 2 hours after that, 30 I say 30, but it was like 30 personnel and about 5 vehicles.
Yep.
My numbers might be off there. I'm exaggerating. It's part of the story. But a whole bunch of UN dudes came up. There was about 5 vehicles. Yeah. And they're like, why the fuck are these cunts coming up? Well, they'd come to arrest me for murder.
What?
So what happened was 4 or 5 days before all this happened, I was in doing a close target reconnaissance, trying to find a way through this village as part of the recon course. We'd come across this sort of point where there was like sheer jagged cliffs on one end, and to get around it, I either had to go backtrack another 10 Ks and find a different route through. And mate, when you're carrying like 50 kilos of weight on your back and you're doing recon patrol pace stuff, I was like, fuck that. I'll try and find a way through the village covertly. Anyway, I ended up sneaking up, trying to get through this pig pen, and one of the dogs in the village started barking uncontrollably. He could smell me, obviously, and it alerted the locals. And locals were like, "What the fuck's going down in there?" And they started throwing rocks sort of in the direction. And I'm all gillied up. I'm pretty sneaky, and they're like, "Nah, something's going on." And so then all of a sudden, they bring out one of the like couple of the older fellas of the village, and they're having a look around. And they start going inside and looking for weapons. And I look at the guy I'm with, one of our guys. I can't say his name. And I was like, "Fuck, mate, we should probably break contact." He's like, "Yeah, it's getting a bit crazy." So we did a silent break contact, and because they could hear us break contacting through the bush, they were like erupted. The whole village just went up in like these fucking war cries. They thought we were a rival village coming to steal their pigs.
Yeah, right.
So they grabbed their spears, their like World War II era 303 rifles, and all we had, because we were on course, were blanks. And the DS was the one with the live rounds, who was back in an LP position, which was like 400 meters away. And we weren't break contacting towards him because that would have compromised it. So we had to go down the hill, and we were running, man. We ran about 2Ks as fast as we could down this hill, and they set the dogs after us. And we would run from these dogs, and we found this little cave in East Timor. There's all these tiny little like sinkholes and stuff from erosion and all the rest. And so we scurried our way up into that, and they ended up tracking us all the way. And they're like looking around, they can't see us. They're like, the dogs are stopped. Dogs don't know where we are, but they're like looking around, and they must have just seen like my face and old mate's face, and like they shit themselves. But I was envisioning maybe a fight because of dropped weapons, and I had my BFA on. And there's a trick: you can take your BFA off and put your cleaning rod down it, and you can shoot a blank like a spear. And I was like, well, if these cunts fuck come, I'm going to shoot the cunt with a cleaning rod. So I MacGyvered, and in the process of getting the BFA off, I snapped my good Leatherman. So I was cranky. And so when this cunt came down and he spotted us, and he was like, "Malay, Malay," and then they all started running back up the hill. May or may not have fired an angry shot in the air. And for them to get money, they made a story up that I'd actually killed one of them and buried them in the hills. And the guy I was with is a fucking funny dude, and he let those rumors percolate. And he was like, "Yeah, I was there. Yeah, Blorry definitely buried."
Kill that guy. Yeah.
So these UN dudes turned up to arrest me for like war crimes and murder, which quickly got put to rest because it was obviously all fabricated.
Oh, that's amazing.
But that next, getting to the accountability part. The next morning, we all had to go back onto recon course. We are all severely dehydrated and hungover. We're taking out maybe 10, 13 liters of water with us if we're lucky. And we chewed through that in that Timorese jungle in like 2 days. Like it was gone, bro. Like we were so thirsty. You imagine being the most hungover you've ever been in your life, and then going back out into the jungle. Like the water just evaporated, bro. And I was like, "Look, we need a resup." And they're like, "Yeah, as part of the training, we're going to simulate that there is no resup, so you're just going to have to go without water." And I was like, "No, I don't think you understand. Like, some of my boys are actually going down with dehydration and shit. Like, we actually, like, okay, I get it. But we are in a training environment. Maybe you could just give us some water." Like, we had a bit of fun. Like, everyone got on the piss, you guys included. Throw me a bone here. You did tell me during my orders that I could have some water delivered by Black Hawk. Like, let's fulfill that part of that deal. He's like, "No, it's not happening. I'm going to simulate that you can't get water." And I was like, well, that's a rough deal. So I had to take accountability on that. That was a wake up call for me to be, maybe don't get on the piss, maybe be more responsible. But true and true myself, I came up with a better idea. Was that when the nightfall went and it was my turn to provide picket for the recon patrol, I would sneak off to the sub 2 position and steal water from their rear esh.
Nice.
And so they're like, "Oh, Blorry, it's your turn for picket." I was like, "All right, sweet, man, go to sleep." And I was like, "You asleep yet?" He's like, "Huh?" All right, cool. And so I left my webbing and I just took my monocular and I took a IR Siloom. It's a jungle, man.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty good at navigating. So I navigated to the closest road, and I knew that road would lead all the way to the rear esh of the sub 2 position. And I cracked a Siloom on the road. So I knew without a doubt, this is my position. So if I fucked up my pacing for whatever reason, I had to start running or whatever, I knew that if I found that Siloom, I'd be good to go. Unknowns to me, Stoney, and I think Harry were preparing to contact us and push us. And they were just about to fire on us when they saw me get up and start walking through the bush. And they're like, what the fuck is this cunt doing?
Yeah.
And they're watching me, and they're like, fuck. And so I could hear a vehicle running, but I thought it was a bit further than it was. Turned out it was probably a bit closer. And it was those cunts watching me. And then they saw me snap at a Siloom, and I asked Siloom and stick it in the tree. And they're like, what the fuck is this cunt doing? He's got no gun. He's got no nothing. He's just running off in the bush with nothing. Like, what the fuck is this dude doing? And so anyway, I run off and I get like a whole bag of water. Like all the instructors for Sub 2 are there running around, and I'm sneaking past them. I felt like bloody Metal Gear Solid. Yeah. Stealing all the water out of their rear ash, and I'm running back down with these big jugs of water. I'm like, I'm a fucking hero. I got the boys' water. Anyway, I get to my paces, and I'm like, where the fuck is this Siloom? Yeah. And it didn't occur to me at all that they'd stolen it. Yeah. And apparently they were like, if this cunt can find his way back without the Siloom, we won't say nothing. Yeah. But if he gets lost, we will fucking destroy him. Like, he's done. He's off the course. Yeah. Probably send him back to Australia, because what he's done is fucking really bad. Anyway, I'm like, these are my paces. Like, my Siloom should be right here. And I'm like, maybe it's fallen out of the tree. Maybe it was a dud. I'm like, that's definitely the tree. I was like, went back, like put all the water in my bag. And then when we woke up the next morning, I was like, fuck, we're thirsty. And I'm like, boys, I got you covered. And I was like handing out all the water bottles. Like, where the fuck did you get them from? I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And it wasn't until the end of the course that I realised that Stoney and that had fucking just
shaky dogs.
Not said a fucking word about that at all.
Funny.
But I still didn't pass.
Oh no, that sucks. That's fucking funny.
I had a DS that was bipolar. I just caught him on a bad day right at the end of the course.
That's no good. No good. I laugh at the tuk-tuk because I had a similar on our RCB trip where we did our Anzac Day at Hellfire Pass. I was in the thing for that, and they sent us into this little town, Kachannaberry, to go in to get on the piss. They dropped us off in the minivan. It was a solid hour drive from wherever. I can't even remember where we were camped, but it took an hour to get into this town. We all got on the piss, got blind. They gave us all the business card of the resort we were staying at. Like, if you get lost, show this, we can get home. Sweet. We got to the end of the night. We had to be up by 6 a.m. the next morning to start rehearsals for Anzac Day the following day. So it was like the 23rd we got off. It's like 2 a.m. We hit the lady up that owns the bar. We're like, yeah, we need a taxi. We need to get out of there. She's like, yeah, no worries. I'll get you a taxi. This tuk-tuk rocks up. And it was me and Dominic Mead. And we're like, we just looked at him. We're like, no, we need a taxi. She's like, yeah, this will be fine. Like, no, you don't understand. We need a taxi. This is a tuk-tuk. We need a car. She's like, no, it's fine. We're like, all right. So we talked to the driver. We're like, mate, we need to get to the thing. And he's like, nah, I got you back. We'll get you. We're like, no. We need to get to this hotel. We tell him the name. He goes, yeah, 15 minutes. We go, no. It took us an hour on the highway to get here in a van. This is a tuk-tuk. Like, so he goes, no. They're slow, local, back streets, 15 minutes. We're like, all right, man, no worries. So we get in this tuk-tuk. We shoot off through the back streets, and sure enough, about 15 minutes later, we pull up at a place with the same name. And he's like, haha, here we are. And we're looking at it. We're like, nah, this ain't the place. And he's like, yeah. You said such and such, and this is the hotel. And I'm like looking around, and I find the business card, and I give it to him. And he goes, yeah. He looks at the name. He goes, yeah. And I go, yeah, flip the card over. And he flips the card over, and then he sees the suburb of the town, and he's like, oh. And he just points, and I was like, yeah, so let's go. Cut forward. We're doing 40 on a tuk-tuk on the open highway for about 3 hours. We're driving. It's the middle of pitch black. We've got no idea where we are. We're blind. He is fuming. Like flat stick. His wrist is getting a cramp. Just giving us the filthy look. And then suddenly it starts sputtering. And we're like, oh no. What's going on? And we pull over, and he's trying to tell us it's run out of fuel. And we're like, fuck, we're in the middle of nowhere. Not a clue what's going on. No idea how far we are from this next town. We see some headlights coming down the street, and we wave down this ute, and they pull over and they start chatting to him. And we're like, can we jump in? We, through the language barrier, they're like, yeah, jump in the back. So we jump in the back, and off we go. We give them the card, and they're like, yeah, we can take the rest of the way. So we're sitting in the back, bouncing away. And I was like, fuck, how much did that cost us? And Tom just looks at me, he goes, what do you mean? Oh, well, how much did it cost us to get this far? He goes, I thought you paid him. It's like, I thought you paid. So this poor fucker has driven us 3 hours on the highway in his tuk-tuk, run out of fuel, has no idea where he is, and just been left there stranded while we ended up jumping in a cab and getting all the way back. And even then, they pulled up at like some random street and then just pointed down this dirt road and just went walk. Like we didn't know. So it took us probably another half hour or so to walk back there. I think we walked in the door at like 5:30, crashed, and immediately got up and started doing drill training. Fucking, what a shit fight. It was good times. Tell me, talking about accountability, tell me, you know the story I want. Tell me the story you told me this morning.
Yeah, so this is a story that comes up from the boys in my section every Anzac Day. They have to retell it. And Kyle, if you're listening, mate, I apologise. You know, I wasn't the nicest till I see to you, but we were north of the Chora Valley, pretty much at the extremity of the valley itself, at an ANP checkpoint, an Afghan National Police checkpoint. And it's the first time working with these dudes, and we're doing a few operations in the area. And we're staying there for a few nights, and we were mounted up in our vehicles. It's made a little harbour, and we had sort of a notional shell scrapes, if you will, and certain areas where we slept, and next to the vehicle. Anyway, the call got to mount up, and we were going to head up on another operation, and we all mounted up, got in the vehicle, and Kyle goes, "Oh, Blory, do you mind if I go to the toilet? I really need to shit." And I'm like, "Can't we just mount it up?" I'm like, "Really? You need to go to the toilet?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm about to shit myself." I'm like, "All right, mate. Go to the toilet. All good." So he gets out, he goes to the toilet. And it makes perfect sense that you wouldn't walk 300-400 meters over open ground to go do a shit when everyone's sort of mounted up, ready to go. We're like literally moments away. Like the word could come any moment. So he's done a shit next to the vehicle. Made perfect sense to me why you would do that. And then he's gotten back in the vehicle. 10, 20 minutes have gone by, and they're going, "Look, guys, we can't go yet. There's something holding us up. Let's just dismount and provide security, and we'll reassess. We'll mount up again in a minute." So I get out and I walk around to where I've been sleeping and sitting for the last 3-4 days, and I find a giant fucking shit sitting right where I've been sleeping. And I'm like, "Boys, who the fuck did this shit in my sleeping area?" And they're all sort of looking at each other, and they all look at Ozzy, and I'm like, "Ozzy, did you do this shit in my fucking sleeping area?" And he's like, "No." And I go, "Really? That's strange, because you're the only one that needed to do a shit and the only one that left the vehicle." So, I mean, like, I'm no detective. I mean, I eventually become a private investigator in my life, but I'm no fucking detective now. No, it seems like you did a shit in my fucking sleeping area, mate. Just, all I'm going to ask you to do, you grubby cunt, is get a shovel, pick it up and fuck it off. Like, it's not a big deal. Yeah. All right? And he's like, "It wasn't me." I was like, "Okay. Well, then who was it?" Because the shit wasn't here when I mounted up, and now there's a giant shit. And this went on for about 10 minutes. And eventually he goes, "Oh, the boss did the shit." And I go, "Really?" Our lieutenant, whose vehicle is 200 meters over there, walked all the way over here, saw my spot and went, "Yeah, fuck that cunt," and did a shit in my sleeping area, and then walked all the way back to his vehicle. He's like, "Yep, that's what happened." And I go, "Really?" I go, "Right," because I'm going to go ask him. And if he goes, "Yeah, Blory, I did a shit in your sleeping area," I'm going to deck him. Like, I'm going to fucking lay him out, because that's just disrespectful. But if he tells me, "I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, Blory," guess where I'm coming back to, mate? And he's like, "Trust me, Blory, I didn't do the shit. I'm pretty sure it was the boss." I'm like, "All right, mate. Okay, I guess." And so I grabbed my pistol, I grabbed my armor, I started walking over the boss's vehicle to confront him about this shit he did. And I hear this little meek voice go, "All right." And I go, "What?" He goes, "All right." And I walk back, and by this stage I'd fucking made him go on the gun, on picket, in the PMV, on the electrical mounted fucking device.
PWS.
Yeah, the PWS. And so he's sitting in the crewy seat, and I'm sitting at the back hatch of the PMV. And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "All right." I'm like, "All right, what?" And he goes, "All right, I did it." And I just pulled the pistol out of the holster. Like, I didn't even think. Like, I just blacked out anger and just pegged it at him. Fucking God knows where the pistol went. And I get out of here, you fucking cunt. Ripped him out of the vehicle, pushed him up against the door, fucking trying to lay into him, belt the fuck out of him. You lying piece of shit. And the clearance diver boys, EOD, have run over and they're fucking grabbed me and they're holding me off him. I'm like, don't lie. It's very simple. Like this wouldn't have happened if you didn't lie. But the boys love telling that story on Anzac Day.
That is good. That is so many shit times you have in the army turn out to be excellent stories later. You just laugh at just the retarded shit that happens. Like,
so much of it, man. So much of it.
I think that's that level of brotherhood that you have. It really is. It's probably the biggest thing most people miss, I think.
100%. Yeah. And just be uniquely yourselves. I mean, where else can you find a dude who sticks in a loom round, a 40 mil loom round up his ass, where 30 dudes clap and pay money to see it and it not be homosexual? You know what I mean? Like, and for those who are playing at home that don't know the story, we had a dude who we betted he could fit a loom round in his ass, and he wanted to prove us right. He did pretty well, I have to say. And then we shot it at the Taliban a few days later.
Yeah. For those playing at home, we're talking 40 mil diameter a loom round, about what, 6 inches?
Yeah.
6 inches long, about 4.
Sure.
Yeah, I believe as the legend goes, he used was it sunscreen?
Sunscreen as lubricant. Yeah. And I got a permanent marker and I drew lines on it like a measuring tape.
Yeah.
And each time he got to a big line, he got an extra $1,000. And I think I'm the only dude that paid up. Like I'm pretty sure he got to like $1,500, and he might have got about $200 out of me. The poor guy.
We were stuck on the side of this hill for 5 days. One of our vehicles got caught heading out to Hadrian in the Tangi Valley out there. And we were stuck on the top of this hill. There 5 days. No food, fuck all water. It was an absolute shit fight. It's an old story in itself. But on the back side of this hill, there was this A&P checkpoint. And they had this bitch dog. Just a mangy, disgusting thing. But it had a litter of pups. And so it had these massive, saggy nipples. But it's an Afghan dog. So it's just, they're covered in green pus. They're leaking, like just disgusting. And we're all sitting down having a break. It's hot as fuck. And it's sitting like, I'm sitting there on one side and Crawford is sitting there leaning against this rock, and this dog's sitting just on top of the rock above him, and the nipples are hanging down. And old Quinny looks across and he goes, "Hey, Crawf, give you $100 if you lick one of those nipples." Crawf's like, "Look," and he's like, "No fucking way, that's disgusting." And I was like, "I'll throw in another 100." We went around the sections. Everyone in the section, there's 8 of us there, so $700 US at the time for him to lick it. And he's like, "What, like, are we just talking like a little, just a tip of the tongue, or we talk?" No. It's got to be a full, like, you get that in your mouth as deep as possible and a full tongue spread of one of those nipples. So Crawford agreed. He's got up under this dog who is just minding its own business and taken one of those pussy green nipples in his mouth and licked it from like his tonsils all the way forward, promptly spewed everywhere, and then turned around with a hand out for money, and everyone's just gone, "What are you talking about? What do you mean?" Like, didn't get paid a cent, the poor fucker.
Oh, mate.
Oh, fuck.
There were the things that were the worst, man. Like, I could deal with a lot, but as soon as it come to something gross putting in your mouth, like, I'd throw up. I had the weakest stomach for that.
Nah, I'm fine.
I used to see Brownie peel like big potato chip versions of blisters off his feet and eat them like potato chips.
What?
And I just throw up.
Why?
Oh, bro.
What an eclectic bunch of people.
Oh,
like, honestly.
And we had Welshie, the exchange dude, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
And one of my favourite things I used to see him do is when he used to get drunk, he used to take all his clothes off. And he'd tape like a whole bunch of palm fronds to himself. And then he'd put his feet up on the table and he'd get a spoon that he'd, like one of those old queen spoons that have like a little castle or something on the end of those antique ones. Stuck one of them in his ass and would scoop out measured pieces of poo and then flick them at the pogues as they walk past in the boozer. And these dudes and chicks did not know what to do. Like, what do you do when a dude flicks shit at you with a spoon and he's got his like ass up there like that?
Oh,
so
that's horrendous.
Yeah, I think I threw up on that time too. But,
fuck, there's some grubs. Absolute grubs we used to work with.
Well,
but it's
I
you
think
love 'em.
infantry just attracts them.
Yeah.
It's a particular type of person that signs up to kill other people.
Yeah,
And they're
yeah.
not generally all that put together, are
Yeah,
they?
yeah. As we were saying earlier, that's kind of one of the things you need. You need people that you can still control, that they're not completely out of control. But if you are asking them to do that job, you need people that are willing to go to great lengths to achieve something that other people are not really going to
100%.
be able to do. That's
100%.
a huge responsibility to be placing on people, especially young people too. I mean, what's the average age is what, like it's like 18 to 25
Oh,
for the
mate. And
most
didn't
part.
you feel like you're an adult?
Yeah,
Like when I was 21, I
yeah.
thought I was like a man.
Mm,
And now I look back and I was like, dude, you were still a
yeah,
child, man. Like, you
yeah.
didn't know anything, man.
Mm.
Not a thing.
Dude, it's crazy. You mature very quickly though,
You
in a
do,
different
yeah.
way.
100%.
Yeah, it definitely you grow up quite quick on deployment. It's
Yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah, so you said you got into being a private investigator
I did,
on
yeah.
the back end. How did
Yep.
that come about?
So actually, when I left the army, I decided that I was going to pursue a career. I got out of the military, especially 5RR, for the same reasons the majority of the battalion got out at the time. There was very poor management. We didn't feel like we were being respected, both with our time and our efforts. There was a lot of things going on in that period of time, and a lot of guys were being very disgruntled or feeling disenfranchised about the whole thing. And I definitely was one of them, but I wanted to make a name for myself outside of the military too. Like, I've ticked this box, I can do this job, I'm very good at it. I can always come back and do this. So I thought. They won't welcome me back.
Yeah.
And for good reason. But I actually went and became a deep sea construction diver. So I paid 30 grand
really?
out of my own deployment money, and I took leave without pay, and I went down to Tasmania to school dive down there, and I learned how to become an underwater construction diver. So
What does that take? What do you have
so
to
it was 3 months of underwater training.
Yeah.
And essentially, you learn how to weld and do construction, but underwater, you learn how to dive in a bell and all the rest. So I did everything. It's it was a level 3, so just one below saturation diver, which is where you sort of earn the big bucks and go to hundreds and hundreds of meters and sort of work on oil rigs and things like that. I was in the commercial space. So mostly worked around dams and onshore sort of infrastructure. Most of the work I got was actually in Tasmania on the fish farms down there for Tassal and Huon. And it was pretty cool, man. It was a really good gig. I really loved diving. It was like that same thrill you get from Afghan. It's peaceful under there. The work was great. The people were great. But I was pretty unhealthy. I was taking a lot of medication. I was a fucking full-blown alcoholic. Didn't know it. And I was also still right into my fitness. I was an alcoholic, but still a fitness fanatic. And both of those things are very difficult to do when you're a diver. You get a thing called, obviously, nitrogen buildup in your system. And basically, your body needs to be almost perfect to go under pressures, sort of 50 meters or so. Yeah. And if your body isn't working perfectly, it's going to run into trouble. I also had a small issue where I had a small hole in my heart, which meant that the nitrogen bubbles crossed over from one chamber into the other, which made them a lot harder to get out when I came to the surface, which essentially meant that the bubbles expanded in my bloodstream and basically shredded me from the inside out. And typical AJ, don't go get help when you're injured. And so I actually spent a long time with the bends, and I just kept getting bent and getting bent and getting bent and just did not get help, because getting help means that you're weak. Getting help means that you're letting your team down. You're putting your hand up and letting somebody else do your job when you should be doing it. And so it got to the point where I didn't know my name. I couldn't tell you my date of birth. I'd walk to the flight of stairs and pass out, and I'd wake up 6 hours later in a ditch. Like I was pretty bad. I'd have a shower and my skin would just bubble, bro. Like I could feel like it's peeling off my body.
Like physically bubble or just the feeling?
Just a feeling, man. And yeah, pretty painful stuff though. But yeah, I was in a really bad way, and they put me in a hyperbaric chamber. Maybe probably half a dozen times now. I just kept getting the bends, and they didn't know why. And I think it was a multitude of factors now that I think about it. But essentially, I had to give up diving. I had to give that up for my health, And basically the lead dive doctor down there, Smart, he said, mate, like, if you come back here, mate, I might have to pull the plug on you because, like, not on my, like, pull the plug on my license to dive because he goes, you just keep getting bent and you just don't get help. Like, you're pretty much forced to come here because you're fucking dying. Like, so he goes, for your own safety, I might have to fucking strip your license. And that scared me because I'd already spent so much money on it. So that maybe I'll go do a break for a bit, work out what's going on, maybe get heart surgery or something so I can continue to dive. And I thought, what the fuck am I going to do? Well, it's my oyster. I've always been about reinventing myself. I can do anything I want to do. And I was like, why don't I become a private investigator? That sounds pretty cool. And it sounded like a pipe dream to a lot of people, but I made it happen. And quickly I became quite a renowned surveillance operator in the Sydney area and picked up a few jobs and then ended up working for a pretty notorious company that was got a good stead in the industry. And ended up working all over Australia. They flew me all around the country, watching people doing undercover work, all that sort of thing. So yeah.
What's that work like?
Mate, it's very much like the military. You get a tiny slither of like the coolest shit and the coolest stories in the world, but the majority of it is just literally you on early warning sentry, fucking sipping water, watching a very, very boring space and trying to sneak in a jerk without anyone watching you, or hopefully no one's watching you. So it's very much like being on early warning.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's very boring, very lonely. Yeah. And then there's all the report writing that you have to do after it. It's a lot, you know, like police. You got to have a paper trail. Everything goes to court, that sort of thing. And it was a lot of it too was like my Afghan 2.0 because many of the people I was following are bikies. They're in the Middle Eastern crime syndicates. They're drug dealers. That's not why I was following them. It just so happened that they were also those people as well. And so, you know, the risk was high for me. And I don't have a pistol on my hip. You know, I don't get any protections. And I was putting myself into very, very hairy situations. And so my mental health deteriorated significantly. And it was probably the worst thing for my mental health was to go in that industry because, you know, I was still gilling up. I was getting into ghillie suits and crawling through, you know, warehouses and bushland to get to, you know, facilities that had certain people that I needed to watch, or a certain, you know, maybe the EPA had employed me to look at a illegal asbestos dumping operation where the bikies are involved in taking waste from building in Sydney and then dumping it in an illegal area. And it was my job to go and plant surveillance cameras in those areas and stay undetected. And if I was caught in those scenarios, which my boss and I were nearly caught one stage, and they'd come out with guns, you know, sort of looking for us. So, you know, there was high stress situations there that, you know, didn't help my mental health. And because it was such a lonely job too, that played on me a lot. Like in the army, when you go outside the wire, you're with your boys. You're with these dudes and you feel invincible when you're with them. Like don't matter if there was 100 Taliban in front of you, you're good to go. Like it doesn't matter. When you're by yourself, me personally, bro, like the whole thing switches on its head. Like it's pretty scary. You know?
Yeah. You said they come out with guns. Are you able to talk about, like, can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so essentially we needed to put in some covert surveillance systems. So you might see New South Wales Council have what they call report illegal dumping, RID for short. And essentially my boss basically gave them the blueprints, like showed them how that might work when they basically implemented it. So we showed them how we can implement certain cameras and keep them online for certain areas, like without any electricity, all that sort of stuff, how you would employ them, how you cover them up, how you keep them concealed and covert essentially. And so he basically came up with that, and I basically helped him with the field work. And we went on to this one job. I can't say where it is or who it's about, but let's just say there's some bad dudes doing some bad stuff, and we need to put some cameras up. And the way that we would keep cameras running for long periods of time is we would dig essentially a pit and we would bury a whole bunch of 12-volt batteries and bank them all together. And that would give us X amount of time for those cameras to run indefinitely. And this is like Some of them are like registration tracking technology and all that sort of stuff. And that would mean that we would have to expose ourselves less often to come and replace the batteries and that sort of thing.
When we're talking time, we're talking like indefinitely sort of weeks or just a couple of days?
We're talking
worth
maybe a month, maybe two, stretch it out. And then to avoid that, we were wondering whether or not we could implement a power pole, which we technically needed a warrant for. And me working in the dive industry in places rural like Tasmania and Strawn, which actually I'll go back to a story there in a minute, but we work with diesel tanks all the time, like remote diesel storage facilities all the time, and those things get fucking ripped off all the time. Like dudes always stealing shit from there. So if you find a place that holds fuel in a rural area, it's probably got fucking that much security around it because it's targeted all the time. And he's like, oh, maybe we can bypass all the batteries and just plug straight into this thing. I was like, leave it, bro. Just trust me. It's probably got a fucking sawn-off shotgun with a tripwire attached to it. Like, people don't fuck around with this shit. Like, just let's leave it. Anyway, he tripped an alarm trying to open the box. And dude on a motorbike who lived close by came ripping up looking for us. And we were hidden. We were gillied up. They didn't see us. But they suspected something. I was trying to work out how I was going to get a tree branch to fall on it so it looked like it had triggered it by accident. But where am I going to find a big enough tree branch? Where did it fall from? But, and I heard the motorbike. I was like, it's time to go. Let's just bug out. And so they suspected something. And then they came back in the middle of the night when we were there and come looking out with searchlights. We knew who these people were. We had briefings on them all, and we know what they're about. We didn't see any firearms, but we're pretty confident that that's what they were there with.
Yeah, right.
And they were definitely looking for us. They had spotlights trying to find if there was anyone in there. So yeah, it was hairy stuff. And I was like, fuck, man, maybe I should start bringing my own guns to work just in case. But,
that's a butthole puckering situation there.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Yeah. You were going to go back something about Strawn.
Oh, yeah. So I was diving in Strawn. I'm the only diver. It's funny. I went back there for a holiday, I think back in 2019 with my young family. And there's some cruises that run through to the old convict settlements through Macquarie Harbour there, right at the very back there. And one of the things they tell on the cruise is about the fish farm operation. And they're like, oh, yep. And, it's quite dangerous work for the divers down there. We've had a few divers that have been attacked by seals and been bitten in the past. And I was like sitting in there going, yep, that's me. I was the only person on the west coast of Tasmania to be attacked and bitten by a seal. And it's a hilarious story because here's this dude just come back from Afghan, he's a bit of a fucking hard cunt. He's big boss, fucking, get out of my way type thing. And I go down there and I'm fixing this hole in the net, right? And this seal has got the shits and I'm basically plugging up his feed hole. He's ripped open to obviously feed on the fish inside the net. And he is fucking latched onto my arm. He's just come up and just gone bang. And I had a torch here on my wrist that I used to see because in Strawn, in most of Tasmania, they have tannin in the water, which leaches off the plants that they have in on the ground there. And basically the tannin turns the water into tea. It's crystal clear. Like you could see 30 meters on some days with a torch, but it's like murder in the dark. It's pitch black. And like sun will be out. It's pitch black in the water. As soon as you go 3 meters under the water, it's pitch black. And so wherever you shine the torch is all you see. And so you don't see the sharks coming. You don't see the leopard seals. You don't see the seals. And the seals are never usually an issue, ever. Just so happened I pissed off the wrong seal that day or whatever. And this dude, and the only reason he didn't break my arm or do more damage is because the torch got trapped in his jaws. But mate, we've got comms, we've got helmets on underwater, and I squealed like an absolute bitch. Like I was like the girliest scream you can imagine. I was frightened, bro.
Yeah,
I was frightened. And the guys up the top were like, the fuck? And they're like, come over, like, you're right, mate. And I was like, yep, I'm good. I'm all right, mate. I just got bitten by a seal. And they're like, fuck off, bro. Like, you're fucking full of shit. And I'm like, no, I did. I'm going to come up.
Yeah.
And I come up and they're like, all like, you're full of shit. And I put my arm on and it's pissing out blood out the wetsuit. And they're like, oh, fuck. And I ripped my wetsuit up. And yeah, sure enough, I had 2 puncture wounds in my arm. And they're like, oh, bro, that's pretty rough. Like you could probably get out if you want. Like
Yeah.
people don't get bitten by seals every day here. You know, you can
Yeah.
probably have a rest for the day. And I was like, I'm not going to let a seal get the better of me. Dude, I did
Shaken.
fucking nothing. I got back in that water, bro. I stayed about 10 meters off the fucking surface of that cage and did no work. And that was probably me for a week, man. They're like, dude, why are all these dead fish at the bottom? Why aren't these ropes fucking like, is he even doing anything? Nope. No, I'm not. I'm just filling in time, man. I was fucking terrified to go near that thing for like a whole week, bro. But yeah, eventually got back into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had some close calls out there in the water, but you know, this comes with the territory. And when you're chasing that thrill, like I had a few close calls in Afghan. Most of my near-death experiences were all from the actual A&A. So we got into contact early in the trip. Channel 10 actually were there, and they actually videoed part of the contact. And my section was on the left flank, I guess, of Route 62, providing security. And we walked straight through the ambush. They must have peeled in behind us and attacked the convoy with RPGs. And Marshall actually returned fire quite quickly, and we were caught up sort of in a crossfire. And we were dry fire and moving back to the base. And out of fucking nowhere, bro, this RPG fucking gets fired from the base and it lands between me and Godders, like 3 meters between us, and detonates.
Yeah.
And like me and Godders just looked at each other, and then we looked back at the base and we're like, what the fuck are they shooting at us for, bro? We're like, this is ridiculous. And then the other time was I actually went out and did I set an ambush or reactive OP, sorry, for the ABC listening. And it was the darkest fucking night I've ever seen in my entire life. Our MVG barely worked. And we set this ambush up, and we actually ended up getting a wedding go through it. We didn't get any bad dudes. We had a wedding go through it, and we were like, fuck, please don't trip over the claymores. It was so dark. They had torches. They couldn't even see us. They walked right over the top of us. And we're trying to make our way back, and we're like lollipop stepping because we literally cannot see anything. And we get to this crest, and over the other side is one of the ANA bases being built. And I'm like, radio on through. We're approaching from this direction. Make sure you hold fire. Friendly's approaching. Don't engage. Usual stuff.
Yeah.
Make sure those ANA dudes know we're coming over that hill.
Yeah.
And anyway, yep, all done. You're clear to proceed. And anyway, we're going down the side of this mountain, or this other side of this finger, and it's like, again, it's so black. We're just sort of lollipoppy stepping down it. And it was like out of a cartoon. Like I'm looking through my MVG where I'm stepping, and all of a sudden everything just comes into pure, beautiful detail and then disappears again, and then detail, and it's this spotlight shining on me, and then it zeroes in on me, and I'm like, fuck, I'm already reaching for my radio, and then it's just bop, 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 and these rounds impact just fucking near my leg, and then skip up the hill behind me, and I can just hear them buzzing past my head and impacting the ground. And I'm like, my first instinct was, fuck you, cunt.
Yeah.
I'm shooting back. But obviously I'm in a terrible position.
Yes.
And if I engage, my boys are probably going to cop it. Like, someone's going to die. So it's not a smart move. And obviously they're meant to be our friends, so we shouldn't be shooting them. So very calmly, I took a kneel, and I'm not being sarcastic. I was actually pretty calm, and went, you better tell that cunt to fucking stop shooting at me, or there's going to be hell to pay. And I think just as I was keying in talking, another burst came in and fucking landed next to me. And like by that stage, I was like, this cunt shoots one more burst at me. It's it. It's done. Like I'm assaulting that position, and I'm not stopping until every single one of those ANA cunts are dead. Like fucking dead set. Thankfully, Monkey got up there, fucking ripped the cunt off the gun, was like, fuck cunt, like, don't show your face. Like when Bory gets here, cunt, don't show your face. I had to avoid the whole area. I knew if I fucking walked up there and confronted that cunt, it would have just ended up in like some sort of international massacre.
Oh,
because they're scary, man. It would have been on for young and old, but
they're loose. Yeah, they're loose. Yeah, they nearly killed us with 105 round.
Yeah,
from Wally. Yeah. We went out. It was just after Jamie Larkin been killed. It was out near that same patrol. I think Muhammad, the patrolman.
Yeah.
We went out there. It was just after Larkin had been killed, and we went out just past the finger.
No, it wasn't that one.
Wasn't that one?
No.
We went out there, and we went for this patrols for this village. As we were driving in, we could see across the river. You could see the fighting pits that the Taliban had dug in to the high ground. And we were like, okay, this is there's a good chance we might get in a stoush here. We had some yank detachment, throw some 60mm mortars up on the high ground. We went out, we dismounted, walked through this village, not a woman or child in sight. The village mullah, we couldn't even see fighting age males. Like, it was almost like the village was abandoned. Yeah, the village mullah came up and he was like, you need to leave. The Taliban are here. You need to get out. They want to kill you. And we were like, okay, well, we're not hiding, so, feel free, whatever. And anyway, we were there for about 8 hours. Nothing happened. Nobody fired a shot. We didn't see fuck all. Saw the occasional person kind of scurry around, but nothing enough to engage anyone. Couldn't even get a KLE in, so we key leadership engagement. So we picked up, pushed back to the vehicles. We mount up, and I've just got out the top as the machine gunner out the top hatch, and across the road, it maybe 80 meters max. Koala just exploded. Farmer in the front, he's fucked.
He's done.
We're like, what the fuck? I'm getting hit with rocks and shrapnel and shit. I've ducked down. Quinny's popped out the other side. He's like, what the fuck was that? I'm like, I don't know, man. That just exploded. Then we hear over the fires net. All call signs be aware. The ANA have fired a quote-unquote smoke round 1 kilometre off target. Wow. That was a fucking HE round, and it decimated that thing. Yeah. Like, over the sound of the vehicles, I couldn't hear the whistle coming in. But I was like, how do you fire at 1 kilometre off target? It's not a little mistake. That's huge.
Afghan was a series of fucking just mishaps and mistakes the whole way. Like, our hierarchy ordered mortars to fire into this, essentially a reentrant. And then when they got around the other side of it, there was like, as a deterrent, as they got around the side, there was these nomads fucking all set up in camp, and they were just copping these mortar rounds, and they were like, oh, fuck, sorry guys.
Nobody died.
And there was another time I was on our base, we had a thing called fob lock, which was essentially, if you're an NCO, you looked after the base, made sure that if it was in contact, you'd rally, fucking retaliation, that sort of thing. Made sure the jerrys were full, boys had coffees, that sort of stuff. Well. And I was actually having a real wank in the toilets during my time of responsibilities, and a contact broke out. Well, so I thought, and I was like, do I finish up here, or do I just stop and just respond? And I was like, well, clearly post-come clarity would work in my favor during a hostile attack. So I finished up. Anyway, I got out, and it was on the ANA side, and all these ANA dudes are fucking out the tower just shooting at this hill that's behind the Muriwais. And I'm like, nothing's come over the radio at all, which was super weird. I was like, surely one of the boys would have radioed and gone, Blory, like, we're getting attacked. I'm like, nothing. And I'm like, what's going on? And there's these silhouette figures running down the hill, and everyone's firing at them. And then the labs kick up their 25 mils. The 25 mils are going. I'm like, oh, fuck, something's going on. Like, who the fuck are these cunts? And I'm looking, and all I had on me was my pistol. And I'd actually been training, at 300 meters behind the base to shoot targets, the size of a small minibus, 300 meters. Yeah. And I was like, I could maybe get a fluke shot here. And I was like, it's going to look so bad if dudes see me shooting the 9mm. Like, it's going to be embarrassing. I better not shoot the 9mm. Like, people will think I'm an idiot. Yeah. So I ended up taking an AK off one of the ANA dudes. I was like, give me that cunt. You're missing every shot. Yeah. And I started to like posture myself. And as I looked, I was like, fucking something's wrong here. Something's wrong with this situation. Turned out to be like kids, like 4 and 8 years old. And what happened was our commanders that we spoke about before that were absolutely retards were just looking outside, and these kids had gone up to light candles for a wedding that was taking place down at the bottom of the hill as a shown as respect and celebration. And our fucking idiot commander decided that they were lighting fuses to rockets that were directed at the base, and ordered everyone to start opening fire on them. And the ANA obviously don't fucking care. They don't look at the situation and assess it for themselves. Yeah, they just started opening up. And the lads were given orders to fire, and so they were engaging, and they stopped after about 5 or 6 rounds. They're like, "What the fuck? Who? Wait, hold on a second," because they've got their optics and stuff. And that could have been atrocious. Can you imagine if any of those rounds landed? Well, that would have been a catastrophe,
mate.
So I'm glad I had come nut clarity because fucking who knows what would have happened.
Oh mate, it just I remember lying out that same area we were in, near Mohammed on the side of this hill. I'd just finished picket. I'd gone into the middle of winter. I've got my Recon 5 sleeping bag. I've stripped buck ass naked, crawled straight into it, trying to warm myself up so I can get some sleep. And just as I'm starting to doze off, I just hear bop. I was like, oh no. And I'm waiting for someone to yell out contact. And I just stayed there and nobody yelled anything. And I just went, I guess we're not in a firefight. Then rolled over and went to sleep.
Yes.
And it turns out the A&A just lit up a cat. They saw one across the river and just blasted it. Like, why? What are you doing? They're
they were crazy, man. They were, and that's one of the things that we were really frustrated with too while we were deployed over there with our particular hierarchy, was that they just did not seem to understand the situation that was before them. Here we are, we're in a war-torn country. We are actually fighting people on the ground. There is a real life threat there that is something that we need to be focusing on. But on the other hand, we also have Afghan National Police who are addicted to heroin and opium. They're all off their face. We have Afghan soldiers who are also taking drugs, weed, opioids as well. They're always off their face on patrol. They're using inferior weapons that are unsafe, terrible, terrible weapon drills. All in all, just a bad situation to be as a soldier. You also, you're facing the rapes that were going on in those A&A bases, where there was a lot of sexual abuse against one another in those camps.
And children.
And you also had to deal with the sexual abuse of children that was ample. I mean, there's an example when I deployed to Afghanistan mainly as a 2IC, as a section 2IC, but one of my main roles was also as the CFA. We had one medic to our patrol base, and he couldn't deal with all the casualties coming in. I mean, and we have people like Todd Dovey who are just fucking laying wasted cunts on fucking scooters and getting there. I mean, this dude shot a Taliban dude, and the fuel tank on his fucking motorbike exploded and just shredded his dick with fucking shrapnel. Yeah. Which was a cool injury to deal with. But casualties were coming through every single day. And so I used to help as much as I could down on there. And we had this one kid come in. He would have been like 10 years old, man. And it wasn't like a normal injury. He had his whole backside wrapped up in towels and stuff. And he had about 3 or 4 of his uncles, his dad, and a bunch of their friends also accompany him to the base. And essentially what happened is they'd raped him so terribly they'd actually prolapsed his asshole. And they'd wrapped it up and they'd presented it to us to help. And it's like, well, mate, I haven't been taught how to fix a prolapsed asshole. And being confronted with that, and you remember me being a fucking psychopath at times, I would think that my response would be anger and to just fucking belt the fuck out of these dudes that had turned up, like fucking absolutely smash their fucking faces in. But I was actually just hit with this overpowering sense of helplessness and sadness. Like, it was like, it doesn't matter what I do in this situation, it's going to happen tomorrow. It was just so rampant throughout that entire area, especially the rural areas of Afghanistan. It was those are confronting scenes.
Yeah, I think that's where the dark humor comes in.
Yeah, 100%.
There is nothing else you can do with that situation.
Exactly. I just asked him who was his favorite.
Yeah, exactly. Like yeah. But you tell those jokes to people who haven't been on the ground, and they're like, what is wrong with you? That's offensive. You can't. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
You want me to sit there and cry about it?
Well, essentially, Try Vengeance, the cartoon that I made, is kind of about that little boy.
Yeah.
I still think about him often. It sucks, man, that you live in an environment where the people that are most meant to love you the most are hurting you like that. And so, when I was making Try Vengeance, it was meant originally just a story about 2 of my diggers who used to share a laptop, who used to jerk off because one of them didn't bring a laptop overseas, and so they had to share a laptop to watch porn. And so they had to mutually jerk off at the same time. And they used to jerk off.
They couldn't take turns? No. They had to be together.
Dude, there's limits to being a 2IC. You don't have to question everything your diggers do. But they used to have a balaclava and a neck sock that they used to jerk off into. And that's where that story developed. And then eventually it turned into Try Vengeance. And I accidentally made the most wokest superhero ever.
Yes,
so I hope Marvel, if you're listening, you pick me up, because he definitely is the best superhero I've ever seen. But yeah.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, that's what we're all fucked.
Yeah.
That's where
We've
we're
got a
at.
sick sense of humour, man.
Yeah, yeah. That's probably a good point to. I need to piss to take a quick break.
Yeah. Let's do it.
We'll be back in a sec.
No.
So we're back from the break, and we were discussing beforehand sort of the mental stress that goes on dealing with some of the things that
Oh, yeah.
we've experienced overseas and whatnot. I understand when I first met you, obviously very, very angry, and we've covered that, a very angry man throughout your service. But you've kind of come to a point where you've found some sort of, what do you call it, inner peace or whatnot. How did you get to that point post service, having been through everything you've been through in your life? How did you get to that? So the guy you are now, much more calm and
Yeah, so I went through an extrajudicial crisis. I didn't even pronounce that right, but don't matter.
existential.
Thank you.
There we go.
And I had a partner that I'd had, sort of throughout my career in the Defence Force leave me sort of towards the end of that. And that was a really difficult period of my life. And leaving the Defence Force, I planned to go back to Thailand. Returning back from Afghanistan, I went to Thailand with a few of the guys from Mirawais, and we did a Muay Thai fight camp. And I strictly did a Muay Thai fight camp. Anyone who says different, I'll fight you. But I legitimately did. I took it very seriously, and it was the best thing for me for my mental health. It helped me completely, get everything out of my system. I wasn't sort of sitting at home like a lot of dudes were after Afghan, while their parents, while their girlfriend, while their family members were still working 9 to 5, and they were just sitting in an empty house watching daytime television, drinking themselves into a stupor. I was training really hard every day, and it was a really good transition out of a war-like environment and to focus that energy and stuff into something else. And so that's what I planned to do when I got out of 5RA, out of the Defence Force, out of the Army, was before I went and started my dive career, I was going to go back and do a Muay Thai camp where I fought. Turns out I just smoked drugs for most of it and tried to sleep with most of the women in the camp, and didn't get very far in terms of my Muay Thai ability.
Yeah.
But at the end of the 6-7 weeks that I was at that camp, I also planned to do something super weird and out of the box, which was this thing I'd never heard of. I don't even know where I come across it. And it's called Vipassana meditation, or Vipassana. I'm pronouncing it wrong my entire life. It ain't going to change now. Fight me. But I went to this meditation camp, which essentially the meditation itself had been lost for centuries. They'd completely lost. They thought it was lost, and the Burmese people actually had retained its originality. It's the teachings of Buddha, essentially. And I went to North Thailand, right on the border of Burma, which is now called Myanmar or whatever it is. And in the middle of fucking nowhere, mate, I sat there for 10, 11 days, wasn't allowed to talk, wasn't allowed to make eye contact, wasn't allowed to jerk off, wasn't allowed to kill anything, no ants, no mosquitoes. And essentially I had to meditate for like 14, 16 hours a day. I'd never done this before. And they kept telling me, like, this is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. I was like, mate, trust me, I've done some hard shit. And mate, I was not prepared. There was a few Westerners that were on this course with me, very few, because it was literally in the middle of nowhere. And many of them dropped out like within day 2. They were like, fuck this is fucked. And it was really hard. And to this day, I think it's still one of the most mentally and physically challenging things. The whole purpose of it is to be very uncomfortable. You sit in a very uncomfortable position, and the idea is to block out all that uncomfortability and focus on a very central point. It's much deeper than that. And as you go through the journey, you discover that this thing is fucking magical. And essentially, it put me on a different trajectory in my life. It did some healing. And it really calmed my mind. And when I got back to Australia after this journey had been on, this meditation journey, I'd found out that partner that had left me had been with somebody during the course of our time. And that information would normally destroy you. It would have destroyed me. But had I done this meditation camp, this great peace came over me. It was like, and I acknowledged it. I was like, wow, this is different. This is a different Stephen. Like normally this would have just fucking made me lose control of my emotions and fucking lost my shit. But I was just like, huh, who cares? Like it was just gone. And I was like, this is some powerful stuff. And I told many of my mates about it. Another fellow who was in 2RR who overtook our trip, replaced us in our base. I told him about it, who I'd actually spent time with in a Muay camp. He went and did it, changed his, and he was loose, bro. He was a fucking lunatic, and it changed his life as well. Like he's now doing really, really well. And so I definitely think it helps. And, you know, I've been on some plant-based medicines as well. You know, I started taking psilocybin about 2 years ago. After many years of research and putting it off and thinking maybe this will be helpful, maybe it won't. Essentially, it's like doing psilocybin mushrooms, but way, way better. And you're doing it the hard way. Like, it's really difficult, but I find it so rewarding.
How is it similar to the psilocybin? What do you mean?
The psilocybin will open your mind and it'll make you think in a completely different way. You cannot describe what the psilocybin mushroom does to the way you think and the way you behave and how it exposes itself and it's a magical experience. It really is. I've never really been a spiritual person, and after my journeys with psilocybin, it's completely changed my mind on how I look at the world for the better. 100% for the better. Makes you so much more self-aware. It basically points out without any apology all the fucked up shit you've been doing in your life and where you've been going wrong. And it does it in such a way that's so opening and I don't really know what the words. It's very difficult to describe the process.
I'm assuming with that you were talking about it like a hero dose, like over that 5 gram sort of amount.
Yes,
so I've done it a couple of times, but only smaller amounts.
Yeah, so I'm talking about a hero's dose. Yeah. It can vary depending on what mushroom you're eating and many other factors.
Yeah, we're not saying to go out and just drop 5 grams.
No, don't do
relax.
That. Don't do that.
Talk to some people, do some research.
Yeah, definitely. I spent a long time researching this. You know, I've got 3 beautiful girls. I've got a lovely wife. Like they are my world. I'm not going to just go and ingest something that I think is going to put me in harm's way. So I definitely did my research. I definitely looked into this, gave it some heavy thought, and I'm very much thankful for the opportunity and the process to have done it. And mate, yeah, it is magic. That stuff is magic. I've not taken it in a party setting. It's always been in like a therapeutic setting where my journey is to try and find stuff about myself or to improve myself. It's never been about let's get on mushrooms and have a good time. It's always been like a path of self-discovery, if that makes sense.
When you say therapeutic, are you saying are you going to like a clinic
No.
types or just at home?
No, this is at home, but
okay.
I make it in more like a therapeutic setting.
Yeah, okay.
So you know, it's sterile. I'm not in a party scene or anything like that. And the effects are very similar, if not pretty much chalk and cheese with meditation.
Yeah, right.
But I find that doing it the hard way, doing the meditation, is probably more rewarding. It's just so hard, and you need to continue doing it. It needs to be a lifestyle, which I can't commit to right now in my life. Yeah. Like I don't have the time or the energy, or I just don't prioritize it. But I would definitely recommend doing the meditation first. That is definitely something everyone should give a go. Or you could just cheat and just take psilocybin mushrooms and get a similar result, but I don't think it's as powerful.
Yeah. How does the meditation work? I've never meditated before in my life. I've heard the word thrown around a lot.
Yep.
What are you doing when you're meditating?
It's a very good question. Physically, you're sitting basically with your legs crossed. You're closing your eyes and you're focusing on a central point to begin with, and you need to train your brain to focus on a central point. The smaller point, the better it'll be. And for the first 6 days that you're meditating, all you're doing is sitting there and looking at like visualizing the tip of your nose with your eyes closed. That's all you do for like the first 6 days. After those first 6 days, you've trained your brain and blocked out. So every time a thought comes in, you just block it back out.
Yeah.
Just focus on the nose.
So when you're saying central point, you mean something like physical, but
Yep.
You're just imagining.
Yep. You're just
Okay,
imagining it in your mind. That's central point. It's usually the tip of your nose. And
Yep.
after a while, you'll start to feel a tingling sensation, and you can control that tingling sensation. And then eventually you can feel it on the top of your head. And then basically you can map your whole body. You can get a tingling sensation will go all the way down your body and then back up again. You can control it. And when you get really good, you can start focusing in on things like your heart, and you can actually see your heart by feeling it with this tingling sensation. You can feel your lungs, you can feel your intestines, you can feel your brain, and all you're doing is you're focusing your mind on those individual parts of your body. And you think about your fingers, and then you visualize your toes, and you're centralizing, and you can feel them. You can map them out in your brain. It's a very, very peculiar experience. And while you're doing that, your body is bringing out all this trauma, all these things that you've been building up in your life, and it's basically letting them go. And all you're doing is focusing on those things. You're really not doing anything but focusing on those things. And basically, it enlightens you. You slowly become more enlightened. You start understanding the meaning of life and all that jibber jabber. But it's definitely a pretty difficult thing to do, but definitely rewarding. And if I think most mental health conditions could be solved through meditation. However, I did another stint in, I think, March of 2020, maybe 2021. I can't remember. When did Ukraine get invaded by Russia?
I think that was 2020.
So I was in another 10-day meditation camp when that invasion happened. I came out of it and we were at war.
Yeah, well, not us, but them, yeah.
That was my last one. And when I come out of that, I actually came out. Before I went in, I was like, depression didn't exist for me anymore. I didn't have depression when I went in. When I come out of it, I had depression again because it had brought something up, and I found it difficult. So for a few months after that, I struggled quite a bit, but I learned a lot about myself in that process. And it's also when I started to become artistic again. Not autistic. I have that probably too.
I think most of us probably do.
Bro,
to be fair.
the more I do cartoons and I spend 8 hours drawing the same thing, I'm fucking autistic. There's no
just a sprinkle of the tism.
Just a sprinkle of the tism in there. But that's when I rediscovered my childhood artistry and my love for art and creating stuff. So I have that to thank for it as well.
Yeah. Do you think it increased your ability with that, your artistic ability, or you think it just kind of?
I think it enhances all your human attributes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's super powerful.
Yeah, right. I've never thought about I definitely have heard the term meditation. I think everyone has, but I've never really given it much sort of consideration. It's always just seemed something like the monks are doing it over in that Buddhist temple over there. And
I don't want anyone to think that I'm some mad cunt that does meditation.
Yeah.
I'm super lazy. I don't do anywhere near as much as I should of it.
Yeah.
Essentially, I just cheat, don't do anything for fucking 10 years, and then I go do a 10-day course, and I'm re-enlightened and refocused on stuff, and then I eventually taper back off and then just eat Cheerios and whatever else. Fucking meditation's for fags.
Yeah.
So.
And now we're cancelled.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome though. But it's brought the artistic expression back, which is, I think, a lot of veterans, to be honest, and a lot of people with mental health issues, they find art therapy is one of those things that really
100%. It's freedom.
really
it's
helps
self-expression.
them. Yeah.
And I found it very powerful and rewarding. I love doing art.
Yeah. So walk me through your artistic journey then. What has that been like? You've got, I don't know whether people realize that you've got some pretty famous artwork getting out there.
Yeah. So I sort of went kind of, I guess, the word viral there for a little while.
You did.
But yeah, so essentially I started drawing again, and I noticed that I enjoyed drawing, but mostly I enjoyed drawing stories that I'd come across or embellishing on things that happened in the military that I could have. I love laughing at myself. One of the best things I do for myself is laugh at myself. It's a great healing property. Don't take myself too seriously, just have a little laugh. And I tried writing a book about my life. Terrible. I realized I didn't like writing. I probably have enough to publish, but I keep deleting it, and it's like, it sounds terrible. Yeah. But I found that I could tell stories through comics. I could draw a series of pictures and put it together and make a story, and I got a lot of love back from the community that it was tailored to, which would be the veteran community. And dudes from our unit, were going, Glory, that's pretty good, man. Like, we should see more of that. And I was like, all right, man, I enjoyed doing that. I'll do another comic. And eventually, I started doing more and more comics and doing more and more drawing. And now I do like birthday cards for all my families. I'll draw like some sort of comedic relief, something that they've done and, tailor, tied into their birthday. And then eventually Christmas, I said to my wife, I think I might want to give cartoons a go. And so she bought me this ridiculously expensive drawing pad that connects into my computer, and it assisted me to draw, obviously on a computer, help animate and use animated software to start making cartoons. So I sort of went on that journey, and then we got into the Impossible Situp Challenge, or the Atomic Situp Challenge, depending on what era you came from in the Defence Force. So I drew a picture of a couple of fellas doing the Impossible Situp Challenge, which I was introduced to in my early days in the battalion.
Many of us were.
Yeah.
I got mine at Aputure.
Yeah, ego in check. I was like, I can fucking do anything you fucking tell me, mate. I can do whatever this sit-up is, and ended up copping a face full of arse.
Well, just walk us through exactly what the Impossible Situp Challenge is, because there's going to be probably some people that have never heard of it. They're not going to have seen the picture.
Yeah.
They're going to need to understand exactly what you've drawn.
So the Impossible Situp Challenge is basically a group of people convince a lid or somebody who's not privy to the exercise itself that there's a challenge and it's a sit-up, and nobody can do it. And their ego in check, they lay down and go, all right, show us how it's done. And essentially what they do is they get a towel or some form of material, a shirt, and they hold it over your eyes and they hold your head down. And you've got to attempt to do a sit-up. And eventually they'll let go of that towel and you will go flinging yourself up. And awaiting you, unknowns to you, is somebody with their pants down and their ass just above where that sit-up will finish. And so that your nose ends up in their asshole and everybody laughs.
Oh, it's never not funny.
It's never not funny.
It's so good.
And I've seen it happen to so many dudes.
100%.
And not once have I seen a dude go, that's it. I'm pulling the plug. My life's over.
No. I think you bring up a good point earlier. You don't take yourself too seriously. And I think that's something that I think society's lost that.
100%.
We don't laugh at ourselves anymore. We take
ourselves way too seriously.
Everyone gets offended over it. Like, mate, fucking relax. Like, just have a laugh.
It's just a joke. Relax.
There's a very big difference. If someone's coming and having a crack at you, by all means, get upset, defend yourself, whatever. But if everyone's just fucking around having a laugh, grow up.
It's not a hazing ritual either.
No,
I noticed a lot of people were like, oh, it's a hazing ritual. No. It's like, no, mate. But you just did that because we're probably all homos at the end of the day, just in the closet. But seriously, like, pretty funny shit.
Yeah. So you drew it. What was the response from Napier? Like when you submitted it?
So I drew it and I was like, this is pretty good. Like, I'm pretty happy with this. I wonder if there's an art competition out there that would enjoy seeing this. And I was like, I'll upset some people here.
Yeah.
And just turned out that the War Museum was having an art competition, and I was like, fucking perfect. Like, bullseye, man. Like, I'm a veteran. I do some art. Like, I fit all these categories. Like, this is perfect.
I've ticked all the boxes.
And so I was like, fuck it. I'll full send. Like, I got nothing to lose. Like, I don't care. So I sent it to them, and actually then, like, they put an extension on the entries. They're like, we're going to go over the threshold. We said we're going to cut it off here, but we're going to go a little bit longer. Yeah. And I was actually working on Chai Vengeance at the time. I was like, maybe I could even fit in Chai Vengeance. So I pumped out Chai Vengeance and I sent that too. And I was like, oh, bro, I'm going to prison for sure. Like, I thought, like, there's no way I'm going to get away with this. I'm like, Angus Campbell is one of the leading judges on it. He's going to watch Chai Vengeance and he's going to see, the Impossible Situp Challenge. If they don't send me a letter back saying it's inappropriate, we can't include it. I'll be like, all right, fair enough. Or like they just rewrite the rules. Like they like close the website and they reopen it and it's like, you're not allowed to put any of this shit. None of that happened, to my surprise. And yeah, next thing you know, I got an email saying that I've been accepted in the top 29 candidates for the Impossible Situp Challenge.
Yeah.
And I received notification that the Tri Vengeance was not in their scope of artistic expression that they were looking for at the museum. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But I mean, Angus Campbell did just have to watch an animated version of myself jerking off for 6 minutes. So like, it's a win in my book, bro.
Honestly, it's hilarious. It's like I explained to someone the other day when I said I was getting you on. They did not understand at all how hilarious Tri Vengeance is for our community.
Yeah.
Like, we have a sense of humor that is very dark. It's very twisted. It's very fucked up. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Those comments and animations are fantastic. They make all of us laugh.
So yeah, to my surprise, it made it into the entry, and then I was like, "Whoops!" I was like, "Oh well." But I was pretty stoked. Like that in itself, I was like, I'm a winner. Like, I don't consider myself an artist. I think that'd be gay.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like. I'm very early on in my artistic journey. Yeah. I'm not going to say that I'm a tradesman when I'm an apprentice for a year. So, you know, I don't want to go around and say I'm an artist, but I like doing art.
Yeah.
But it did feel like a pretty big honor for me to be accepted into this prize. And I was super grateful for it because I do take myself seriously with my art. Like it's something that I pride myself on. It is definitely self-expression and it's something that I found extremely helpful in my own mental health path.
Yeah.
Just so happens I like to draw dicks and arseholes. But, you know.
And very well.
Thank you. Well, I've been doing correct. I've been doing it since, you know, I've been 13. So told you my maths teacher it'd pay off.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, they accepted it and then they had their launch and then obviously the online community started to get wind of things and it started to go a little bit viral. And then the director of the art gallery in Canberra contacted me, wanted to know whether or not I wanted to speak to the media. And I was like, oh, fuck. No. Probably not. But I'll see. I'll see. Like I'll see how they spin it. If they spin it like completely out of proportion,
you know how they're going to spin it.
Yeah, I was like, I'll you know, I'll make a statement. I'll correct things back on its path. But you know, at the end of the day, it wasn't bad. Like, you know, it didn't bother me how they wanted to spin it or anything like that. And I'm glad that's the beauty of art. I mean, the whole reason I like doing those things is because I think it was Banksy or whatever. He made a quote where, you know, art's meant to challenge the comfortable and make the comfortable feel challenged.
Yeah.
I've butchered the quote, but there's something along those lines.
Yeah.
And, you know, essentially that's how I see things is I like to push the envelope a bit. I like to push the boundaries a bit with my art. And I definitely think I ticked that box. And the great thing is people interpreted it the way they want to interpret it. That's what art's about. I'm not there to dictate how it's meant to be interpreted.
Art it's a funny one because it is very, very subjective. But I feel like in some ways we've lost our way when it comes to art. Like there's some shit I see and I'm like, that's not art. Like you just literally threw paint at the like there's no talent there. My 2-year-old niece does that. She can throw shit at the wall and go, oh, that's art. And then someone's turning around and go, oh my God, it makes me feel. I feel like at that point you're just being pretentious. Like I don't.
It's either pretentious or you're just laundering money.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's definitely laundering money.
I think people are like, this is a great photo. Let me pay $30 million for it. Yep, no worries.
Yeah, no worries, Hunter Biden.
yeah, exactly.
Is this an original Hitler?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll spend $30 million on it. Like,
but if someone wants to pay me like $30 million for, you know, some of my artwork, go for it, man. Like, you need to launder money. Like, I get you, bro. Launder
but it's
money.
it does my head in when I watch it, and they're going on about how amazing it is, and I'm watching. I'm like, that's you're just being weird. That's not to me. That maybe I'm missing something.
You're not autistic.
It could just be me.
You're not autistic.
Not enough. Not enough. I'm like right at the end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I watched a video of some lady. She's like, I call this one pain as she cries and just literally just threw paint at a canvas. And I was like, that's not like I would understand if you painted a picture of something. You know what I mean? Like it seems like there's no skill involved with what you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't think you can call that art. You just made a mess. and you didn't get in trouble for it. Like,
Yeah.
good for you.
It's meant to. I think there's different categories. I mean, you can be a great artist, which I'm not 100%. I'm not talented. I've got to work within my talentlessness, and what I think my strengths are is with creativeness. I can create a story. I can create a vision that people can then run with, and I think artists out there, they can be very, very talented, like lighting, textures, everything really good. But if their painting doesn't provoke thought, then they may have failed as an artist. I find that provoking thought, provoking a story is where art is really important. And throwing paint at a canvas might provoke somebody's story.
Yeah, maybe
I don't
it does.
know, but it's like I said, man, it's subjective. Like, who knows?
Yeah, I could.
Maybe
yeah.
it reminds me of the time their uncle threw something on them.
Yeah. Fuck. Oh, good Lord. We went straight there.
Who knows, man? Who knows?
No, you make a good point. But then if your entire purpose is to provoke thought in someone else instead of just expressing yourself and your thoughts, like, is that? I don't know. That's fucked
We're
me up.
getting way too liberal here.
Yeah. You fucked me up there.
Yeah, I just can't go down this. I can't go down this path with you. I'm sorry.
I've been abandoned. You've left me out in the wilderness on my own little branch. So what did your wife and daughter think of the picture? Did they see it?
Well, look, yeah, that's a difficult subject because obviously the art that I do is not appropriate for children at all. But my wife has been my rock. Like, she is amazing. Like, I don't want to get all weird here, but she is definitely the only reason that I am successful in any way, shape, or form in all my avenues of life. She has been amazing. And my children are a massive influence and inspiration to me to be a great father and a great leader in the home, that sort of thing. But it does get a little weird when they're hearing Dad record sound effects from the office and he's making like fucking retarded noises and that sort of shit. It gets a little bit hard to explain some things. And again, it falls into those things that I was exposed to as a child that my mother thought was absolutely normal. And they probably were. I mean, you got to remember, these are my interpretations of, as a 4 or 3 or a 6-year-old, of an adult situation. In an adult's perspective, it's all harmless because they understand the context that's involved. Where myself as a 4-year-old, I got no idea about the context. So for me, I'm just getting exposed to maybe sexuality too early, or I'm being exposed to adult issues and fighting, whatever it might be. And that's the same with my children that I have to be careful of. Am I exposing them to content that could harm them through my drawings and animations? Because evidently they come into the office while I'm working, or they can hear the recording while they're watching television or something like that. So I am definitely well aware of those situations. I'm hoping that I can give them enough information so that they have some context, but also not enough to make them grow up obviously too fast.
Yeah, that must be. Yeah, that's got to be a really thin line to walk.
It is. It can be. Yeah.
Yeah. How have you found that?
Don't know. Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you enjoying being a dad?
Mate, it's literally the best job.
Yeah?
Yeah, for those who don't know, I'm retired. I just sit at home and basically add 3,000 so my wife doesn't leave me, and look after the kids full time. And so it's the most rewarding job. It really is. So I got my plumbing apprenticeship after I got out of surveillance. I pulled the plug there. I wasn't having a good time doing surveillance. I was having a bit of a crisis. So I wanted to be more physical. So I got into plumbing. I did my certificate 4 in plumbing, and then I just started bashing dudes at the work sites, and I actually got fired because I had to go at your lot.
Really?
Yeah. They were recording an ad for one of the big building companies next door to one of the properties I was working on, and I'd poked my head. I was working on a water tank, and they're like, "Oh, excuse me, mate," scarf around the neck, limp wrist, and we're trying to record an ad here. And you can imagine my response. Yeah. Fuck off, you faggot. And it just escalated from there. And my boss rightly so, had to let me go. He'd already he'd been through the trenches with me, man. He'd been through the absolute trenches. Surprised I hadn't been arrested earlier for multiple incidences, but it was a bit of a wake up call too.
Yeah,
like I realized I was getting angry again. I was becoming really unhealthy. I'd quit drinking in 2019, so alcohol, I couldn't even blame alcohol abuse or drug abuse. I'd been clean for a long time, and I'd essentially on paper looked like I sort of had my life together, but really in reality that wasn't the case. It was far from it. And I put my wife through very, very difficult times. She went through a lot of tribulations during my own healing process and mental health. So enough was enough. Yeah. But I pulled the plug on plumbing, and in 2020, just before COVID hit, with this idea that I would be the only dad, at home at the park with his kids every day, homeschooling them while all these fucking suckers are at work, fucking 9 to 5. And then like a month after I'd made this decision to be a stay-at-home dad, COVID hit and everyone was locked up at home. No one was at the parks. My wife's like, this is what you wanted. I was like, this is not what we agreed to.
I want to be the cool dad.
Yeah, like everyone's at home. This is fucking bullshit. The one time I decided to be at home, everyone's fucking at home. This is garbage. And again, I wasn't very healthy at the time. I'd fucking grabbed the television, I'd thrown it out on the front lawn and smashed it to pieces during an argument. So we're in COVID lockdown with no television, playing Monopoly or something like that, which is also a great catalyst for fucking keeping rage. Mental health in check. So there was a lot of issues going on in my life at that period of time, and I said, enough's enough. I got to get on top of this. It's not enough just to stop drinking alcohol. It's not enough to stop, tobacco or drugs or whatever it might be. You need to really have a hard look at yourself, work out what the root cause of this anger is, and do something for your family.
Yeah.
And I think I've achieved that. Every day is still a struggle.
Yeah.
A lot of the dudes go, Blory, you seem to be doing fucking really well. Like you've got everything squared away. And the truth is, I'm in a really good position.
Yeah.
But you got to work on it every day. You can't just go, all right, I've made it, and then, hang up the gloves. Like you got to make sure you keep on keeping.
Yeah. What do you think? What was the catalyst for the rage and the anger? Do you think?
Again, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just know that I'm a goose.
Yeah.
Anxiety. Like there's I build up these scenarios in my brain, and then I apply them to myself. These are completely made up scenarios that I've only fabricated, but all of a sudden I'm furious about it because, like, something as simple as timings.
Yeah.
Like, if this cunt's late, oh, fucking man, I'm going to be pissed. But then what if I'm late? Fuck, I better not be late.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm putting all this pressure on myself not to be late at something. And the dude who I'm not being late for is like, oh, bro, fuck, who cares? Like, who cares? Who cares? Whatever. Yeah. Like, no big deal. And I'm like, oh, okay. But you know what I mean? Like, I do that in my life every day. It could just be like undiagnosed, attention deficit disorder or something along those lines. But
constant anxiety.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, dude. Well, it's good. I'm glad you've come a long way.
I think so.
Mate, definitely. I think the first time I saw you since the army would have been probably Anzac Day in 2019, Sydney. Mm-hmm. I didn't recognise you. You're a different human being.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, who was that?
Yeah.
Like, Blory. I was like, no, that guy. Who was that? Like, it's still Blory. Still Blory. Totally different human being, man. It's good, Like, I think it's good. You've come a very long way. It's nice to see that you're doing well, man.
Yeah. Still not a granny strangler.
Yeah.
Not a fugitive. Not yet.
Yeah. Wait till you proper retire and end up in a retirement village. It's going to be granny going missing. It's Blory's time to shine.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. How did you meet your wife?
We actually went to school together.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So my wife and I went to high school together. Her father's a police officer, so he travelled around New South Wales, a lot of rural areas. So we parted ways in year 8, the end of year 8, so started year 9. And then when I returned from diving to Sydney, I went with my parents, and I hated living with my mum. Love her to death, but she's hard to live with, really hard to live with. She's like a version of me, but worse. And so I was like, I can't stay here. So this chick had a house. I was just like, you're the best thing. No.
Yeah. I love you.
I
so
moved in.
much.
I
Let me
moved
move
in and just never left.
Yeah.
But no, like she was a really good person to have.
Yeah.
I didn't have any friends when I moved back to Sydney, and she sent me a friend request on MSN back in like 2004 when that
Jeez.
was a thing, and somehow it transferred over to Facebook. And when I got back to Sydney, I was doing one of those things where you just clear out your socials, looking through friend request things, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember her. Clicked accept, and then she sent me a message back going, oh geez, you piece of shit. It's only been sitting there for fucking 14 years. And next thing, led to another, one thing led to another, and here we are.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Well, mate, look, I'm going to hit you with one more question. We can wrap up and probably go get a feed, to be honest. I'm getting pretty hungry. Actually, I got two questions. What's something that you have really struggled with personally, and how have you overcome it? Something that we may not have already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
The second question is, if you had a piece of advice could be for your younger self, could be, for your daughters, could be anyone, a piece of advice that you wish you'd have known. Anything. Can be anything.
So the answer to your first question, we could do a whole podcast on the things that I've struggled with.
Let's just pick one.
Yeah, we're going to pick one. I think it might not be the hardest thing, but it's definitely something that I even struggle with today, even though I don't think I have particularly any issues, but it's addiction. Right? Whether that be addicted to alcohol, drugs, pornography, shopping. Like, I just impulse buy shit. Like, I just see something and I'm like, fuck yeah, that's cool, buy it. I'm like, why did I do that? That was silly. So definitely addiction is a thing that I found very difficult in my life. And
how have you overcome that?
Mindfulness and finding purpose, finding a reason to give it up. So for alcohol, it was for my health and for my family. I value my family more than anything. And so I knew that that was important to me and I needed to make a change. Same with smoking. I realized that was not good for my health. It wasn't good for my back pocket. I gave that up in like 2008. Never looked back. And I just give them up like that. So strange.
Yeah.
But I always find myself craving for something. So I find addiction very difficult to deal with.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's something that I wish I'd known. It's a good question. Something I wish I'd known. Mate, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a tough one.
You have, yeah.
It's a tough question, that one. Well,
it is.
It's one of those two questions I like to sort of end an episode with. Just even just a piece of advice. Like, if you give a piece of advice to your daughters, for instance.
It would be, I imagine the best piece of advice I could give is to know that the universe will correct itself. It will always correct itself. No matter what problem you have today or what problem you face today, it won't matter in X amount of time. It could be in 100 years, it could be in 2 years, it could be in 1,000 years. Whatever your concern is right now, it's the worst thing that's happening in your life, will eventually go away and it won't be an issue. So is it really worth concerning yourself over, or is it more worth you concerting your energy into something you can control under your own roof? And I guess my advice would be to just focus internally, just worry about the things that you can change and that you can control in your life, and all the rest, whether it be trans rights, or Trump getting shot in the ear, or Black Lives Matter, or whatever, jerking off to Caitlyn Jenner because you have porn addiction, whatever it might be, just focus on what you can control in your own household.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, that's pretty good fucking advice, really. Yeah, focus on what you can. I like that. Well, mate, thanks, dude. I really appreciate you flew all the way up here. It's been good. It's been good to catch up again. We haven't seen each other in a while. Probably since Juddy's funeral, to be fair.
Yeah.
The less ideal occasion to be getting together, but I appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're a great human.
Thanks, mate.
No worries.
Appreciate it.
Catch you later, Lids.
See you later.